Football National Championship opened up at 9.5. I heard you and the Laddie Daddy discussing off air. CJ is saying he is going to ride with Ohio State, laying the big number. Sounds like you could be talking yourself into the Irish.
The number is a big number. And I've been impressed by Freeman. I've been impressed by this team. I kind of like Riley Leonard better than Will Howard. I would take the point. This is a huge number. And the early bet volume has come in on Notre Dame, but obviously the bigger bets, I guess, are coming in on Ohio State. If anything, there's some 10s out there now.
Yeah, if we end up picking this at 10.5, it's going to be hard not to get interested with the Irish. I'm going to think on it because Ohio State looked really good, but also like they blew a lot of plays in that game. They let Texas hang around way too long, and Notre Dame showed in that Penn State game, if you make mistakes, they can take advantage.
I thought both teams have been impressive, but Notre Dame's path, I mean, they've been impressive the entire play. They're the only team that I think has been impressive the entire time. I think Ohio State even has had moments where it's like, this is an interesting school. They're obviously talented, but the Texas game, they should have blown Texas out.
Yeah.
How this was a close game, Chip Kelly getting cute, I don't know, but I'm going to be on Notre Dame. It's going to be a money line play, Sean.
No, didn't need to be that close. Wake up tomorrow with VSiN's Tailgate Show with Tim Murray at 10 a.m. East. I'm sure he's going to be loving talking college football as Irish won. He was at the game, probably a little hungover or whatever he got into. Sure, he had a blast. Hats off, got the better of Penn State. So I'm sure he'll be excited to talk more college football. Quote, and his Notre Dame in the national championship.
Quote, greatest sporting event I've ever attended.
How do you not want to hear this guy talk about his Fighting Irish at 10 a.m. East? And then stick around. Live Bet Saturday starting at 1 o'clock will be awesome, taking you through the Saturday NFL slate, followed by Ready, Set, Bet with Matt Brown and Mike Samich at 7 o'clock East. So stay tuned to VSiN all Super Wild Card Weekend. And of course,
thank you for participating in the Sports Gambling Podcast.
Big thanks to CJ Sullivan, producer Corey, everyone behind the glass, making us look good for the Sports Gambling Podcast. I'm Sean Sagan Money Green. He's Ryan.
Have a super weekend, Sean.
Kramer. Let it ride.
GBank is the official bank of VSiN. Why? For one, unlike other credit cards, GBank does not treat sports betting transactions as a cash advance. And for every eligible gaming transaction, you'll earn a 1% cashback reward. That's right, 1% cashback rewards on every eligible wager. And you'll earn 2% cashback rewards.
I spend a lot of time in the backyard, and I'm the center of attention at summer barbecues. In '96, I made some of the tastiest s'mores. And in '09, it was me, your backyard fire pit, that accidentally started a wildfire when a summer breeze carried one of my embers into some dry brush.
Spark a change, not a wildfire. Visit SmokeyBear.com. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Hope you enjoyed your meal. And I just want to say, he's lucky to have a brother like you.
Lucky? Caring for my brother is far from easy. But he's a part of me, like my arms and legs, so I'll be his. No time for tired. Nothing can disable this love. He needs me, but I'm the lucky one, even though I need help now and then.
If you're caring for a loved one, visit aarp.org/caregiving for care guides and community support for your strength. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
What if I told you that a tornado was going to happen tomorrow, right where you live? That it would touch down at exactly 3:17 p.m., and I told you the exact path it would take. You would, of course, prepare. You would talk with your loved ones, and you'd make a plan today. It's true, I can't tell you a tornado will strike tomorrow, but shouldn't you have a plan anyway? Go to ready.gov/communicate and make your emergency plan today. Don't wait. Communicate. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
This is Mario Andretti. You know me as a race car driver, but I'm also a Meals on Wheels volunteer. I've raced against the sport's biggest personalities, but I've never met more vibrant, amazing people than the seniors served by Meals on Wheels. You can make a difference by dropping off a hot meal and saying a quick hello. So, America, let's do lunch. Volunteer your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org.
This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
Hey, let me ask you something. Would you seat your 3-year-old child on a windowsill? Would you seat them beside a lit fireplace or by the deep end of a pool? One last question. Would you seat your child in a car seat that's not correct for them? Car crashes are a leading killer of children ages 1 to 13. Secure their future. Seat them in the correct car seat. For more information, visit safercar.gov/the-right-seat. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Youngstown, Warren, and Salem's local and national sports talk can be found on TuneIn and the Live 365 app at Western Reserve Radio, WRDB, The Scourge.
Nina's Pierogi House is your home for the area's best variety of pierogies. Daily specials include the Polish platter, the Hungarian platter, stuffed cabbage, and halushki. Having a last-minute get-together? Lena's has you covered with a wide variety of frozen take-home pierogies and dumplings. Go to Facebook at Lena's Pierogi House to see the weekly lineup of available flavors for dine-in or carry-out. Catch the best at Lena's Monday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. and Tuesday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. 20 North Main Street in Hubbard or call 234-254-8532. Catch all of the spring and summer action of Cleveland Cobras minor league football on Western Reserve Radio. Follow the Cobras as they compete against teams from around the region in pursuit of a Tri-Point Football League championship. And if you're looking to continue your football career after high school, college, or even the pros, or to be part of the Cobras staff, go to Facebook at Cleveland Cobras Football. Or contact owner Jesse Caldwell at 330-416-3442. Be a part of the excitement of Cleveland Cobras football.
Western Reserve Radio is the Valley's online source for sports talk and local live events. Tune in and be a part of their live weekly shows, as well as all of the hard-hitting action of Youngstown Phantoms hockey, high school football, and the GDFL. Find them at westernreserveradio.com. Tune in and the Live 365 app to be a part of the area's sports conversation. Be sure to visit them on Facebook at Western Reserve Radio and on Twitter at WR_radio.
Driving has a rhythm all its own. Don't wreck it with a text. Before you get behind the wheel, silence your phone. Or better yet, designate a texter. For more text-free driving tips, visit stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
It's time to kick back and listen to the sports page with your host, Pat Lucia, right here on Western Reserve Radio. You can call the show at 330-707-4202 and tell everyone what's on your mind in the wonderful world of sports. Now, here's your host, Pat Lucia.
Saturday morning sports page, Pat Lucia. Bob Gessler's filling in for Dave Clark today. We're rocking and rolling. God, talk about a lot to talk about. Well, first right off the top, we have to talk Buckeyes. Bottom line, Jack Sawyer may be their MVP of the year. If they go on to beat Notre Dame, they might have to consider him as definitely on the team anyway. Jack Sawyer, for those Buckeye fans, didn't watch the game, which probably are next to none out there. But we all saw Jack Sawyer basically win the game for Ohio State, ice the game. Buckeyes down 21, up Buckeyes winning 21-14. Texas driving, end of the game. They basically get down at the inside the 1 yard line after a pass interference. This is Texas. They run the first play into the line. They get stopped. Second down, they run a wide run off to the side. And that was probably one of the dumbest plays they probably could have called. They lost about 9 yards, 8 yards, we'll call it. They're back at the 7-8 yard line. Next play is a pass play that Jack Sawyer tips, which means that the guy got clipped in the end zone. They can't call pass interference on a tipped ball. Buckeyes got to get out of that. Then it's fourth down, and Jack Sawyer comes right off the edge, knocks the ball out of Quentin Ewer's hands. Not only that, bounces right up into his hands, and he's 83 yards the other way, putting no one really around him from Texas. The Buckeyes win 28-14. They have gained the right to play the Notre Dame Fighting Irish next Monday at 7:30 on ESPN, and that might be the largest viewing audience in college football.
I agree with that. I absolutely agree with that. With the following with Ohio State and following with Notre Dame, this can be unbelievable. But I still think they're well matched. I think I believe we have a week off before they play the championship game. Is that true?
A week from this Monday.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. So here's what my thinking is. Okay, they talked about Notre Dame's running backs being banged up. That 2 weeks might help Notre Dame, even though I believe they're still going to practice, do what they got to do. They're not going to get any time off. But I tell you right now that 2 weeks rest for those running backs for Notre Dame, that's going to help a whole lot.
Right. Notre Dame played Thursday night, the Buckeyes Friday, and now they have actually, like you said, a week and change. Notre Dame gets an extra day off. Obviously, for Ohio State has Friday. So both teams will probably be well rested, good, ready to go. What I thought was really interesting is the point spread on this game. It comes out as Ohio State is a 9.5 point favorite, which I was totally taken back because I thought Ohio State came down to earth. We knew they were going to come down to earth. They played, lights out against Tennessee. They played maybe their greatest game they ever played against Oregon.
Absolutely.
In the Rose Bowl. I've never seen an Ohio State team play that way. I can't remember against the top team in the country at that time, Oregon. We knew they were coming down with Texas. The way the game, if you watched it, the momentum, the shifts, Ohio State wasn't really a good game they played offensively. They got a break at the end of the first half.
Yeah.
On the screenplay.
Mm-hmm.
That just resulted in a touchdown, which they gave I knew Texas was going to score to tie the game. I just, you're watching a football and the bottom line is they weren't going to be able to shut Texas out. Texas, good football team.
Correct.
The offense, to me, just did not play well. It wasn't one of their well-played games. They kind of got bailed out, and especially with Sawyer, who put the game on ice. And I'll give the Ohio State offense credit, is because when Texas tied the game 14-14, the Buckeyes did mount the drive and went right down the field to score to make it 21-14. And I got to give them a lot of credit, but the 75-yard screen pass to Henderson right at the end of the first half was unbelievable because it just took all the momentum away from Texas. Texas fought the way back to tie it. 29 seconds. They score with 29 seconds left. You figure, okay, Texas tied it. Going to go get into the second half. Ohio State gets the ball. And then, sure enough, Will Howard hits Trevion Henderson on a little screen pass that went 75 yards for the touchdown. And now Ohio State, you think they obviously weren't taking the knee, but they end up going in 14-7 after, and ultimately it was a 7-7 game. So Ohio State ultimately goes in at half. What hurt the Buckeyes earlier is they had on the second drive, Henderson punches the player from Texas, driving a 15-yard penalty, then takes the air out of the drive, that offensive drive. And then if the following possession, Ohio State gets a holding call, takes the air out of that, and then the possession after that, they get a holding and I believe a motion call. So it basically took the air out of that drive. So Ohio State in the first half, especially, they kept shooting themselves in the foot. They get a reprieve at the end of the first half with the screen pass to Henderson. Then the third quarter, Ohio State's offense just looked like they were asleep.
Yeah.
They had nothing in the third quarter in the tank. They looked out of sorts. I have to give the defense a lot of credit because for being out on the field as long as they were in that third quarter, I knew Texas finally scored the touchdown to tie the game, which I kept saying they're going to have to because you can't expect that defense to continue to get stop after stop. So ultimately, then the fourth quarter, I give the Buckeyes credit. They put a big drive together. It was 7 minutes where it went 88 yards, 13 plays. They score on the 1 yard run. Junkins goes in from 1 yard out. And then ultimately, Texas is driving down the field, fourth quarter, with basically they had about 2 minutes when they scored that touchdown. When Ohio State scored the touchdown, there was 2 minutes, 13 seconds on the strip sack by Sawyer. That's Texas was going to score with 2 minutes left, you thought. And then ultimately, you figured it'll be a tie game. Can Buckeyes go down, kick the field goal, and maybe win it? They didn't need to do that because Jack Sawyer is the man of the hour, the Superman of the hour, no doubt, and of the game. And not only does he sack Ewers, he picks up the ball and goes 83 yards, which will be one of the biggest play in Buckeye history.
Yeah. Well, what I don't understand is why would you call that play? And the corners and the linebackers for Ohio State, they're fast as lightning. What were you thinking pitching the ball? Did you actually think you were going to get outside on them? There was no way that play was going to work. No. If you're going to throw the ball like he did, where's your play action? On first down, do something else. You could have ran dump. Everybody's, and that's what I understand. There's guys in the box. Okay, and you see the defense, they're all right there. Mm-hmm. And you have tight ends that can catch. Why are you not faking the dive and dumping to the tight end? Because everybody's up. Even if he bananas out or he just curls in and just sits there. I don't understand. And then to pitch the ball down what are you thinking?
That wide pitch.
Yes, you think you're going to be out and hit it quick, but those corners and them backers are too fast, and they're going to run that down, and that's exactly what happened. Just piss poor play calling is what I say when they got down there. It makes no sense. And you're not going to overpower the Buckeyes up front.
No, you're not.
And I don't want to say they're bigger, but they're pretty big.
Strong.
But they're strong and fast. And you don't have that. Texas is big, but I don't believe they're as fast as them. And they're going to come off the ball and they're going to create havoc. I mean, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
No, that was and they were talking about it, the second down play where after they ran the ball they were at the 1 yard line on the interference call. Texas runs the play into the line, gets stopped, first down. Second down was the disaster play where they did the pitch back out to the left side, and the back is back running, trying to run the ball, and he swings out wide, and ultimately they get him back at the 8 yard line. It was a 7 yard loss that set up the third down and 8.
Yep.
Buckeyes knew they were going to throw, but then Sawyer tips the ball at the line of scrimmage. You could see that. So the Buckeyes get a break because I'm thinking at the end of the day, you could see the Buckeye guy hit the Texas receiver. But since the ball is tipped,
it's not interference.
You can't call interference on a tipped ball. So that ultimately gets you to fourth down.
Yes.
And then that set that play up 4th and 8. And then again, you could see the tackle lining up, but you could see the tackle staring more at the linebacker. And they were showing that last night on ESPN. They did a really nice job at it. You see he's staring more, paying more at the linebacker, and Sawyer's lined up to his right, and he's not paying attention quite. You could see, and Sawyer, beautiful coming off the ball so quick, got right around the tackle, and then sure enough, Ewers didn't even know he was there, and Ewers is dropping back. He raises the ball, and then ball comes out. beautiful bounce up to Jack Sawyer, who goes 83 yards, and that was the game. That sealed it for the Buckeyes.
Well, see, what I would tell my tackle on that play, even if you got a hand on Sawyer, all you had to do was just bump him off. So what you do is you take your step back. Okay, now you punch whoever gets there first. So Sawyer gets there, you're hitting it because that linebacker is going to run a delay. That's going to give that quarterback another second to get rid of the ball. If he does that, that ball comes out. Right. Now, what happens after that is whatever. But as coaches, you tell them check inside, check outside, head up inside, then you worry about outside. But my problem that I have is if he delays and he didn't come right away, I didn't see the play. So if he comes right away, okay, I get it. But still, you get fat. We tell our tackles, get fat. You have two arms. Even if you punch inside and punch outside, all you got to do is knock them a half a second off. That gives that quarterback or that running back time to adjust that much because that's all it takes. And then you hit it. You can't give it, and I see it all the time in all levels. And I can't believe how much I see it in the NFL. They leave these ends go. You don't block Myles Garrett. He's going to run a play down from the backside. These guys are lightning fast, and that's with Sawyer. Sawyer's going to go big in the NFL. He's a good, big kid, smart, looks strong. He's going to go big in the draft. Is he a senior? I don't even what.
Yeah, he is a senior.
Okay.
He's from Pickerington, Ohio. He played for Pickering North down outside of Columbus.
Yep.
He's 22 years old. He's a senior. He will obviously go in the draft. He committed to Ohio State, I think, during his sophomore year at high school. He was then, a recruit, but he already, in his sophomore year, he told Notre Dame and Alabama, all the schools he was going to, Ohio State.
Ohio boy.
He's Ohio, grew up right by Columbus.
Yeah.
So born, bred in Ohio. He lists his 6'5", 260. And you could see, obviously, the way he ran down the field. He's fast, quick off the line.
Oh, lightning.
And then, like I said, not only does he take the sack and the fumble, you ultimately have the tipped ball. I thought that was important because, again, that would negate any pass interference because they were calling the pass interference on the Buckeyes they were just ticky-tack, but they were calling it. The Buckeyes, that tip ball I thought was real big because that gave the Buckeyes a break.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm thinking the referees are going to call another pass interference. Well, the tip ball negates that. And then the next play, lights out. Sawyer goes 83-yard on the scoop and score and seals it for the Buckeyes.
Well, I'm sure the cap was behind the play.
Right.
And he saw what had happened. So right away, they're going to give you the tip signal. And a lot of times, too, the back judge that sits behind the defense will see that. And I watch him call that real quick, too. Call the tip. So, yeah, I mean, they have no arguments with that.
No.
The ball was tipped, and that's just how that goes.
And that was a big play for the Buckeyes. That was also big with Sawyer tipping the ball, negating any potential pass interference. And then the ultimate was the scoop and the score when after he hit Ewers and that ball just came right up to him and he was gone. And that basically means the Ohio State University will be playing the Notre Dame Fighting Irish.
Great players make great plays, especially when a team's down and we know that they look sluggish in the third quarter. They look like they were kind of out of sorts. And I'm sure Dave went in and got into him a little bit and said, because he's a fiery guy. I like him for that effect.
Right.
He's fiery, and that's a good thing. He shows his emotion. I have no problem with a coach. But he talks to his players and gets to know players and explains stuff. So, I'm okay with that. But I think this game coming up, it could be a slobber knocker, and this is going to be on paper, I think it's going to be a good game. To give Ohio State that many points, I'm dumbfounded.
Notre Dame gets 9.5.
Who makes these points? That's hard for me to believe.
That was off of FanDuel. Ohio, the ESPN announced it last night that the FanDuel point spread was 9.5.
Well,
Notre Dame gets that, which I think is way too many points because Notre Dame is going to keep, or I think, it's going to be a very good game. I knew Ohio State was going to come down to earth. I mean, they played way too good. I mean, they played a great game, maybe the best game, one of the best games in their history of the school against Oregon.
And see, there's where your problem. That could be a problem because as a coach, I've seen us go in there and you go in there and you have the greatest game
ever. I mean,
and then you go back and you play the next team who's a decent team, 500 at best. You get beat or you look terrible. Guess what? It's because did you leave it all out into the field or did you just take it for granted? We beat number one and this team's going to be a slouch. And I see it all the time in high school. And you go, what were you thinking?
Well, did they read their press clippings? And that's the other thing.
That's the other thing. But see, that's with me. If I'm, I'm going to tell my team at Notre Dame, hey, here's 9 points. This is what they think of you. But he's not into he's not into that rah-rah stuff. And I'll tell you that. He really is not. He's down-to-earth coach. I like him. He's close to his players. He brought, and I'll say it, he brought God back to Notre Dame. And these kids there's 60 of them that go to a prayer group. They're all going to church again where, what's his name? Kelly said, we don't have to do that. How do you go to Notre Dame and don't demand to go to church? I mean, that's just how it goes. Simple stuff. So he's doing things and he's great. And the game before when the running back or return guy runs that 98 yards, I don't know if you watched the game, which I'm sure you did. If you watched when they showed him on the sidelines, he's walking like an old person, rocking back and forth. I busted out laughing. My girl, Carol, goes, what are you laughing about? I said, because I know exactly what he said. How do you know that? I said, because I used to tell my players all the time. They'd make a long run. They'd come over to me with a smile, and I'd go, you stink. You're slow. God, you're horrible. I'm telling you, he probably said you ran like an old lady. Yep. I guarantee you. And everybody busted out laughing. But that's the kind of relationship you got to have with the players. You got to be stern. But you got to let it go. You got to know when to have fun. You can't be a ditko on the sidelines.
You can't be like a nut.
Yeah, you can't.
You got to know.
You got to know when to put it on and take it off.
Parcells said this. Parcells said, and this is where it gets back to relationships and knowing your players. Parcells basically said, I knew my players and I knew I had to use a different approach with each players to push their buttons. And I knew what guys I didn't really have to push because they were already like worked up. Then I knew there's some guys I had to kind of get under their skin and bust them. And I remember he coached Pepper Johnson. And he says, with Pepper Johnson, all I had to go into Pepper, and Pepper was already riled up. Like Pepper was go like, he goes, I didn't need to say too much to Pepper Johnson because Pepper Johnson came in. He came in ready to he wanted to play. He was like ready to tear the locker room apart because he was going to go out there. So he goes, I didn't have to do too much with Pepper. I just need to get him put my arm around him and hit him and say, come on, Pepper. What do you know?
Absolutely.
But he goes, I knew some other guys I had to push buttons. But he said at the end of the day, Marcus Freeman has illustrated to everybody how really, and all these Notre Dame people are saying, wow, he's taken this team to levels that Brian Kelly would only wish he could have.
Exactly.
And Marcus Freeman's got more out of his players than Brian Kelly ever did.
And they all wanted to come back and play.
And that's it. They all wanted to come back.
They all wanted to come back and play. And it's just how it was. There were guys that were offered big money to get out of there. You know what they said? No, I don't. How do you leave? First of all, how do you leave a program like a Notre Dame? Right. I don't care if you're a 2 or a 3. You're getting, no disrespect to Ohio State or Penn State or any of them, but you're getting one of the greatest educations ever.
Sure.
I got, and believe me, I know because my brother Lenny tried to get in Ohio State or Notre Dame. I told him, Len, they take care of their people. That's the bottom line. You go to Notre Dame, I would like to know out of a percentage out of even the last 10 years or even out of a graduating class, how many actually go out and get good paying jobs with being backed by the Notre Dame school and that degree, because that means everything to people. Again.
Well, just that as you brought this up, Marcus Freeman is basically from Fairborn, Ohio, and his parents are military people. He was born at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base Medical Center in Fairborn, Ohio. Freeman's mother's name is Chang Freeman. She's from South Korea. Met his father, Michael Freeman, in the U.S. Air Force, and they moved to Ohio in 1976. So he played for a very good school in Huber Heights, Wayne High School, a good football school. And I believe I have to think of the quarterback who went to Huber Heights, Wayne, played for Ohio State. I'll get to it. But anyway, that's where his roots come from. He went to Ohio State, played for Ohio State, and I believe he played for Jim Tressel down at Ohio State as a linebacker, and then ultimately actually played for the Chicago Bears. He played a year in the NFL for the Bears, Bills, and Texans, and then ultimately went back in 2010. He graduated 2008 from Ohio State, played a year in the NFL 2009, and then went to Ohio State as a GA, as a coach, and then ultimately navigated and went from Kent State, Purdue, Cincinnati, and then Notre Dame, ultimately in 2021, and then became the head coach. And I know there were a lot of people questioning, well, how can they make that guy head coach right away? He really doesn't have that lot of experience. Well, now I heard this yesterday on the radio. This is no surprise. There's a couple of the guys on the radio saying maybe the NFL is looking at him and see if he wants to coach in the NFL. And obviously, I don't think he's going anywhere. No. He's got the job that he wants. And again, now I'll say this, though. If Ryan Day, say, wins the national title, they beat Notre Dame, does the NFL come knocking at his door? I know they usually don't go over. They do. NFL's funny because they go phases. Like NFL, we'll get to the coaches in the NFL, and we're going to get to Cleveland's situation with Watson here in the second quarter. But NFL's funny because they go these phases where they go after just the coordinators. Then they kind of go through, no, let's go to the college coaches and let's go that direction. And then they kind of go back and forth. They don't know what they really want to do. Like the New York Giants don't know what they want to do, even though they kept Dable and Shane. We'll leave that for later. But the bottom line is, this will be interesting to see if the NFL comes calling to either Freeman or Day, especially now. There's some Buckeye fans out there praying, let him go to the pros because he can't beat Michigan. If he wins you a national title,
that's all. You know what? I get tired of hearing that.
Give that a break.
Yeah, I mean, come on, guys.
Especially if he goes through he went through the path of beating Tennessee, Oregon, now Texas, and if he beats Notre Dame, and that's how he gets his
win
title.
Or lose, the man has done a great job.
He's done an unbelievable job.
Since he's been in there, I mean, he's taken over. He's done an outstanding job. Here's my take on it. I don't think Marcus is going anywhere. I think he's at home, and until Notre Dame says, I don't want you, he's at home. He's comfortable. And may I say, I just saw an interview. I don't know if you know who started him off in the coaching ranks. Do you know what head coach started him in the
Was it
ranks?
Tressel?
He talks about, he said, he didn't say Jim Tressel. He said Tress. And I knew exactly who it was. But that's the type of guy Jim Tressel was. Again, I sat and met with him, and when I was at Cheney, and he walked me through the facilities and watched it. He is an amazing human being. He really is. Some people love him. Some people hate him. Guess what? Tressel. So he gave him his shot. Because Marcus said, I went to Tress and I said, I don't know if I'm cut out to be an NFL player. I don't know if I am.
Isn't quite right.
I'd like to dabble in coaching. Hence, he puts him on his staff.
He did.
And then he got and then he just blossoms from there. But when you're a good coach, people see it. They're going to give you a shot at it. Believe me when I tell you. What he has done at Notre Dame, bringing prayer, bringing the church, bringing these guys together. Nobody wants to leave to go to the portal.
No.
They don't care what they're making. We want to be here for him. And I believe it's for him.
No, I
know they're wearing that golden helmet, but I still say they're staying there for him.
No, they love him.
They love him.
With Notre Dame, when they do the interviews and the players and him, that you could see these kids actually really love
they love him
for for Freeman. They love playing for Freeman.
Absolutely.
And you could see the way they play.
And they're smart.
And oh yeah.
These guys, they're taught so well. Right. Now, with Ryan Day, here's my pick on Ryan Day going in NFL. I think he's smart and I think he's good. He's not that type of a coach either. I think, yes, he's fiery, here's this and that. But I think he can control a college team.
Right.
You can't talk to NFL players like this. Those days are over.
We'll get to the NFLs because it's a whole different dynamic in the NFL.
Absolutely.
And we'll get to, because there's this talk with the Raiders, and we'll get coming up on the second about Belichick going to the Raiders, and that didn't happen. Allegedly, Belichick, supposedly, Brady reached out to, this is all obviously rumor, Brady reached out to Belichick saying, would you coach the Raider after they fired Antonio Freeman, which makes no sense. We'll get to that. But the bottom line is Belichick says, no, I'm staying at Chapel Hill. Besides, it's a $10 million buyout if they want to buy out. If they wait till June 1st, it's $1 million. But up until now, whoever wants Belichick needs to pay Carolina $10 million. So, again, I don't think that's going to happen. No. But we'll get more into that in the second quarter. But the Buckeyes win 28-14. We'll play Notre Dame Monday, a week from Monday. Maybe the biggest game as far as viewership coming up. Saturday Morning Sports Page, Pat Lucia, Bob Gessler filling in for Dave Clark. Timeout, and we'll be back on Western Reserve Radio.
Welcome to Calvin's Barbershop.
You all got to see this.
I don't even want to know what you're looking at on that phone.
Well, you should. I was learning about the dangers of high blood pressure and that we need to get ours checked regularly. High blood pressure can increase the risk of heart attack or stroke, but this text program can help keep it at a healthy range. Just text Barbershop to 97779 to sign up.
I'll get right on it as soon as I'm done with this baby panda video.
Text Barbershop to 97779. A message from the American Heart Association and the Ad Council.
In the small town of Elmira, New York, a boy was born into an all-American family. The odds of him achieving his dream in the fashion industry? 1 in 23 million. The odds of having a child diagnosed with autism? 1 in 68. I am Tommy Hilfiger, and my family is affected by autism. Learn more at autismspeaks.org/signs. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
WWE superstar Alberto Del Rio. Take one.
Behold the angry giant.
Try it again, Alberto.
Behold the angry giant.
Perfect. Good luck tonight.
Behold the angry giant.
Yay! Read me another one, Dad.
This is WWE superstar Alberto Del Rio. It only takes a moment to make a moment. Take time to be a dad today.
Visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
What do basketball, choir, drama club, and marching band all have in common? They're all high school activities that offer learning opportunities not necessarily found in the classroom. They take up just a fraction of a typical Ohio high school's budget, and they go a long way to giving young people the tools they need to thrive. High school activities, they're more than extracurricular. They're extra important, too. This message presented by the Ohio High School Athletic Association and the Ohio Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association.
Saturday Morning Sports Page back at you. 330-707-4202. Pat Lucia. Bob Gessler filling in for Dave Clark out this week. We got to get so much to get to today. Gosh, this is like a carte blanche of what's going on in sports. It's like we got the Buckeyes with the win last night. I stayed up, made myself go to bed about 12:30. I could have stayed up later. And I couldn't get enough of it. I've seen this thing with Jack Sawyer's play 100 times, and I'll watch it another 100 times.
Well, I went to bed early. Again, I knew I had to get up, and I knew what the snow was coming, and cleaned up at my house, cleaned up here at the office, and wanted to get so our illustrious host here can get into the building safely and
that's right.
Whatever. So
that's right.
I will tell you though, I knew what was going on because my girl Carol, all she was doing was yelling and screaming, "Woo! Wow! Wow!"
Yeah, she probably went absolutely bonkers like we all did when there was 2:13 left in the game and it looked like Texas was going to tie the game.
So I told her, I said, you understand that I'll be in the living room on the big screen, and then you have to either go downstairs or go in the bedroom. And she goes, why is that? And I go, Notre Dame and Ohio State, we can't be in the same room together. Coach would not like that.
No, that won't go well. That's going to be a tough because Irish Michael should be calling in, and we'll get his take because he loves the Buckeyes, but his allegiance is over.
See,
I'm
the same way. Right now, there's my two teams I always cheer for. But like Carol always says, I hate to keep bringing her up, but she'll tell you, I cheer for Notre Dame. But when they're going against the Buckeyes, I'm sorry. You got to do what you got to do. I'm okay with it.
I mean, I think that's a lot of, and I think that's America.
Yeah.
That's why I think this game is going to generate so much far as viewership.
Oh, yeah.
Because you've got a national brand in Notre Dame, but you can make an argument because of Ohio State, they are getting close to being a national brand. And I'll give you just a real quick story, then we'll get into the coaches and Deshaun Watson. But bottom line is, this is years ago. My wife and I were out in Chicago. We were shopping, and we were in a shopping mall, and we went into a Big Ten store, mind you, and it was all Big Ten.
Mm-hmm.
So we walk in, and we're looking around, and I'm looking, and the lady goes, "Can I help you?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm looking for, what do you have it with the Ohio State? Like, I'm looking for that." And she rolls her eyes, and she goes, "Why is it everybody comes in this door? This is a Big Ten store, right?" I go, "Yeah. Why is everybody coming in the door asking for Ohio State?"
But they're the number one Big Ten, them and Michigan. Come on,
but I mean, she said, she goes, we should just make this Ohio State store, because she goes, everybody coming in the door. This is Chicago. We're not in Columbus. We're in Chicago.
But it doesn't matter. I'm not going to go in there and ask for Iowa or Indiana.
Her point was well taken.
Yeah, I understand.
She was very nice, and she was being funny, and I laughed because she was like, but she said, seriously, she goes, you come in, and she goes, you know how many people come in this door looking for Ohio State? She goes, it's like 9 out of 10 people. She goes, there's usually one person out of the blue will ask for another school. But she goes, I go, even Michigan? She goes, yeah, even Michigan. She goes, no. She goes, all the people coming in here are from Ohio State, and we're in Chicago.
But again, that's the following. That is the amount of graduates.
Right.
You know, they aren't going to stay in Columbus or Ohio. No. These guys are spreading all over like Notre Dame. And that's just how it goes.
And that's what happens. When you think Ohio State has over 50,000 undergrads there in a year, in 1 year. So you got to figure, let's just ballpark it. Take a course, say 12,000 graduates of every year. They keep pumping out 12,000 graduates a year.
Over 75 years that are still living.
Right. So you have a giant school. Right. So, and like you said, these graduates are all going.
Yeah.
And if you look at the ratings, the network ratings, you always see that the ratings for Notre Dame and Ohio State are through the roof.
I have
anytime you put them on, and that's why they all want to put prime time Ohio State and Notre Dame, because they drive your ratings.
I know this is a little different, but this is we're talking about following teams and stuff. My Uncle John, who just passed away not too long ago, great guy. Him and my Aunt Dee lived in Florida. And my cousin Alan, who was a coach up here, Alan Mikovich, he sent him it was a Cleveland golf hat. So, Cleveland golf. So it said Cleveland on it. He's walking down in Florida. Guy comes running up to him and goes, You're a Browns fan. That's what I like to hear. And my uncle was kind of like, how do you know I'm a Browns fan? He had Cleveland hat. So the following, again, I know it's a little different with college, but it's the same thing. There's people all over that you have your team. You cheer for them. And that's just how it is.
That's where it is.
And that's where it is. So that's why I really think the ratings for this game is going to be through the roof. Through the roof.
It'll be a Monday night. It'll be the 20th of January, so it's a week from this Monday. And this will obviously drive a big rating. And I said that this is heaven for college football playoffs.
Oh, yes.
Because of the two teams they wanted in a final. I know there's people out there, well, they like the underdog, the Boise State of the world.
Sure.
I get it. I understand it. But for the final, you couldn't get two as far as name likeness teams, 1 and 2, as far as popularity, Notre Dame and Ohio State.
And when they pick these teams, and this is a good thing that proved to them too. I was just telling somebody that they were asking some questions. I said, well, do you realize it's 12 teams? They need to go to 16 because they need to keep playing. Oh, well, why is that? I said, because the top 4 teams that were number 1 lost in the first round and lost pretty good.
Yep.
And I said, that's because they sat and the other teams kept playing. They lost focus. Yeah, you want to say, well, you could rest your players. It doesn't work that way in college.
Not 2 weeks.
No.
3 weeks.
Yes.
And that's what happened. Like, I think you brought up an excellent point, especially when you saw like all these schools that had the week off, like Arizona State actually got their feet and got their focus fourth quarter with Texas. They started out real slow. It wasn't much of a game. And sure enough, Arizona was a team that kind of got off the mat, sort of to speak, and got back in the game and tied it. The other teams, Boise State was real out of whack and out of sync against Penn State. You got to think maybe if Boise State would have played, maybe that would have been a better game because Boise State actually showed you they could compete at that level.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
I never doubted that. Oregon got boat raced by Ohio State. They just basically did not know what the hell hit them. When Ohio State played Oregon was just kind of figuring get the rough parts. And then as soon as Ohio State put those 2 touchdowns, like in a blink of a guy, that was game.
Game was over.
It was over 14-0. And Oregon still didn't know what hit them.
Yeah, it's just, you can't do that. You got to keep going.
What you ultimately do, and that's a great point, is I think what you're going to find when first of all, they want to get to 16. Everybody will play. Yeah. Nobody will sit out. There'll be no, 2-3 weeks off. They'll have the normal 9 or 10 days, and then they get into it. And I think you'll get 16 teams because they'll want everybody to play because that's the best thing. The best thing, I mean, I know now you go back and look, but in a roundabout way, if Ohio State had beaten Michigan, and then they would have played Oregon instead of Penn State. That's an extra game they needed to play, and they don't need it. But the point of it is if they would have beat Oregon the second time, they would have sat for 2 weeks. And they wouldn't have maybe had the edge that they did. Not to look at the silver lining, but that Michigan loss might have been the best thing that ever happened to them.
Yep.
Because it basically got them back into focus.
Yeah, it opened their eyes.
It opened their eyes.
Exactly. Or got cocky, and then they said, "Oh, we got this." And then when they went into that game and
they got beat by a lousy Michigan.
Yeah, we were horrible.
Had no offense. It woke them up.
Yep.
But then they came out against Tennessee and blew them out. Oregon, they blew them out. I knew they were coming down to earth with Texas. I knew they couldn't keep that up.
Right.
But again, at the end of the day, they were never behind in the game.
Right.
It was just a matter of staying above, and they pulled the game out. So now you're setting up with probably one of the best. Well, it's going to be a great game because you've got 2 identifiable teams, and I think with Notre Dame is going to stay in a game, and I think it could be like a Penn State game, which was a great game with Notre Dame.
Yes, down to the wire. Notre Dame looked out of it; they got back in it. Penn State should have been up by a lot more than 10-3 at half. That field goal that Notre Dame kicked right before the half was actually a real game changer because for getting their basically butts kicked
for a half, they were only down by 7 points.
But that's the difference between a mediocre team and a good team.
And a good
that's
team.
what it is.
And that's exactly what it is.
That's what it is.
Freeman kept them in the game,
Yes.
coached them up, and then the second half, they got breaks going their way, but they got in the game. And I got to give Penn State played very, very good. They should have beat Oregon. They played very good against Oregon and lost, but I knew they were on a roll. Franklin did a good job. He coached them up. I think he's a good coach, even though the Penn State people want him fired.
And I don't get that.
And I don't get that either.
I don't understand.
But at the end of the day, I think that, like I said, I think Franklin will hopefully he should keep his job. And Ryan Day will keep his. And obviously, when we know Marcus Freeman's fine, with all the Buckeye fans, what they're going to have to do, Buckeye fans, if the Buckeyes beat Notre Dame and get a national title, they're going to have to give him a contract extension.
Oh, yeah. I agree 100%.
The guy they wanted off fire will now get a contract extension, Buckeye fans.
Yeah. And Mr. Craven, Jim Craven will tell you, I hate kickers. And They kicked that field goal at the end of the game, and I looked at my girl and said, I hate kickers.
I hate them.
Just won the game. I said, I hate kickers.
Let's slide over. We got to get we got the NFL wild cards to get to too, and let's look at we've got the coaching situation, and we've got our man, our favorite player, Deshaun Watson. Sadly, I could not believe this, but he ruptured his Achilles again. He tore the Achilles again after the surgery. In rehab, he tears it again. So now they're saying his rehab is going to get well into next year. He's 29 years old. Will be 30 next. He will be 30 this year, September 14th. Bottom line is, you tear your Achilles again. I mean, wouldn't you think that the rehab is going to be that much longer and excruciating?
It will.
And which means, will he even see the field in 2025? I don't know how he can.
Pat, I think he's done. I really,
from just a strict physical standpoint.
Yeah, I think he tried to do, and I could be wrong, he tried to do that Aaron Rodgers thing where they worked, and Aaron Rodgers says, I could come back this year and this and that. Everybody's different. You don't know the extent of what happened to the Achilles.
How bad it was.
How bad was it? Where did it tear? How all that stuff. So obviously, he was probably going through therapy, so they know what they're doing. But obviously, something went wrong. Do I think that he should come back? No, I think they should. I mean, they got to pay him. So, hey, thank you. Have a nice life. Here's your money. We got to move on because he hasn't proven himself. And I got corrected. He only played 3 years. Yes, but he's been on the team for 4 years. And for 4 years, he finally got 18 or 19 games in 4 years. Give me a break. Come on. So I think it's time. Well, everybody knows it was the worst thing that NFL could ever have done. And I'm sorry, I was not sold on him. I loved Baker, and they blew that. And he's just eating the league up.
We'll get to that because he's got a big game. Just so you know, before there's folks out there that think he's done playing, you might want to, unfortunately, pump the brakes with that, and this is the reason why. This year, 2025, if they decide to get rid of him, which they can't because no one would want him, but they can't because the dead cap hit is $172 million. And the cap hit is $72 million. So let's call it 73. It's almost 73 million. Okay, so he's there. Now people think, now we can get rid of him. Not so fast. The following year, this is why this has got to be the worst contract in all of pro sports history, not NFL, all of sports. In 2026, you think, okay, Deshaun, we want to get rid of him. He's done. May want to pump the brakes. Why do I say that? The cap hit again is $73 million. Now, the dead cap, there is a little good news with dead cap. It's not $172 million. Let's just say for the discussion, rounded up, it's $100 million. So they're going to take, even if they get rid of him after 2025, you think we can get rid of him? Yeah, you can't, because you're going to get $100 million dead cap hit. Evidently, I don't know if they restructured it. It came out this way. This is what happens when you sign a guy to a 5-year, $230 million guaranteed contract. You can't get rid of him. Basically, money dictates where. I mean, even Russell Wilson, they took an $85 million cap hit. And the only reason why they got out of that, or they were able to absorb it, is because they got lucky with Bo Nix.
Yes.
And they were able to work it out. So the team recovered and they built the defense, and Peyton, Sean Payton did a great job. Now, I guess the only thing this opens up the door to the draft is because now the Cleveland Browns have the second pick in this draft. They have to draft a quarterback.
Oh, absolutely.
And you've got to figure this way. You have the quarterback, you work him in, don't throw him to the wolves and let him struggle. Hopefully one of these quarterbacks. It's either Shedeur Sanders.
No. Pat, I'm not sold on him. I'm not. Because I think you're going to have Daddy overlooking a lot of stuff, or I just think that would be a bad pick. And he may be great in the NFL. I don't like that pick. I don't care for it. But I think there's other players that they can go after that could prove, or you could get him in there. Whether it's Notre Dame's quarterback, Ohio State's quarterback, there's quarterbacks out there. Yeah, it's not a big, strong pick.
You're going to be the GM here. Okay. Here are your quarterbacks. These are how they rate at least the top, 5 quarterbacks. And these ratings will change.
Oh, absolutely.
Because today's January.
Yeah.
But for the sake purposes, Shedeur Sanders is rated number 1. Cam Ward is number 2. Jalen Milroe from Bama is 3. Now, Quinn Ewers looks like he's coming into the NFL. It was I read an article this morning that said there was that word that Quinn Ewers had a NIL offer from another school. They didn't name the school to transfer their $6 million. Well, evidently, Ewers came out and made the statement that he's planning on going into the NFL. So now he's the 4th-rated quarterback in this. And Kyle McCord, who's from Syracuse, he's coming out. He's the ex-Buckeye quarterback. Yep. He's rated 5th. Dylan Gabriel is rated 6th, and Will Howard, the Buckeye quarterback, is rated 7th. But if you're a GM, you got the number 2 pick, Mr. Cleveland Brown here. What do you do, Ghostbusters? I mean, what do you do? Do you look at maybe signing a free agent like a Kirk Cousins, who now is a free agent? He's got a lot of tread. He's coming off an Achilles. Could he recover? We had that bad year. All these quarterbacks, older guys like Rodgers, and you take Rodgers and if you just take a look at Aaron Rodgers as far as him coming off an Achilles at the age of 41, Kirk Cousins at the age of 35 or 36, he came off the Achilles. He's not 100%.
No.
Do they need another year to get it back, or is the career pretty much downward and they're not coming back? Because it happened to LeVar Arrington. He had the Achilles tendon. He blew and he never came back from it.
What was wrong with Flacco? They should have kept Flacco.
Well,
they would have paid him peanuts.
But here's the bottom line. The reality is I watched Flacco play for Indiana Colts. He's done. I mean,
I get it, but it still would have been better than what we had this year. I still believe that.
So here's your debate there. So he wins you 2 or 3 more games. Now you're drafting later on. Now you're better off losing the games.
Yeah, I understand that.
Maybe I watched Flacco play. He's 39 years old.
That's the problem.
He's old.
These guys need to walk away. They're done. All these old timers, they're on their 30s. And I say old timers because technically that's what they are. You're not going to get a Brady who's going to be able to play.
What do you do, though, getting back to the original?
I don't know. I just think
you're the GM. You got to make a decision. You need a quarterback. Okay. Do you look at these. This is the draft. Sanders, Cam Ward, Jalen Milroe, Quinn Ewers, Kyle McCord, Dylan Gabriel, Will Howard, Curtis Rourke. These are the top quarterbacks that they've got listed. So now you're thinking, okay, now what you could do is say, okay, wait a minute. We're not really in love with any of these guys. Do we take the best player and maybe in the second or third round, we could probably pick up a Kyle McCord or a Quinn Ewers. And I think because those guys, Jalen Milroe, I don't think he's a first round pick either. Shedeur, some of the GMs don't love Shedeur Sanders, and they don't think he's a first round pick.
No, I watched him play. I mean, he's a good quarterback. He's the threat to run. He can throw good. But I think Dad's too much of an influence, and I think you're going to have to buy them both, and I don't like that.
Well, I don't.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's going to be an influence there.
Well, Deion's going to have his coaching gig now. There's a rumor out there. Love these rumors or speculation, which is great.
Same thing.
But the rumor is that the Raiders would hire Deion to be the head coach, and then work out a trade to get Shedeur and bring Shedeur and Deion into Raiderland in Vegas, and they would basically be the father and son head coach and starting quarterback because the Raiders obviously need the quarterback. I felt bad for Antonio Pierce, and I did feel bad for Mayo. I've talked this time and time again with these owners. When you hire a coach and he lasts 1 year, that's on you.
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
You screwed up.
Yep.
You
didn't do your homework.
You are exactly right. You were like Gerard Mayo. Kraft made him head coach way before he was ready, evidently.
Absolutely.
And Antonio Pierce had the gig half a year. But in his defense, I felt bad for Pierce because he never had a quarterback.
Yeah, he never got his chance.
And so he really never had a legitimate shot. It's because he had no quarterback.
I agree.
And the team played like they had no quarterback. So at the bottom line is now you fire him. And now there's talk about allegedly Brady reached out to Belichick. Belichick's not going. Belichick, no, I'm not.
I think he's done at the NFL level.
Here's
I do.
What I believe with Belichick. When Belichick became the head coach back in 2000, 2000, he became head coach in New England. Back then, you didn't have the meddling owner or the GM.
100%.
Belichick could run the team, build the team, which he did. An unbelievable job. You can't take it away. And he won, 5 Super Bowls, built a dynasty in New England.
Best quarterback that's played up to this point with numbers.
Right.
We'll say numbers.
Right. No doubt. Okay. Now the face of the NFL has changed. It's evolved. The coach no longer has that kind of power.
No.
That's how Belichick coached, is because he knew he always had the power to do what he needed to do. Where I think the rub is, I think Belichick sits back and he looks at these jobs, he looks at the GMs, he looks at these meddling owners, and he goes,
"That's the problem.
I don't need these. I don't need this headache. I could be." And now this is where the college game is so much better, is because we were talked about it right off air. Ryan Day, Marcus Freeman. They don't have the president knocking at the door, going over game film and telling them what they did
exactly.
wrong. They make the calls. They have all the autonomy, but they don't have a meddling GM or some, like now with a lot of these coaches, a lot of these owners, like the Jets. What is it? Woody Johnson, basically the kid that the rumor was, and they kind of quelled it, that he was talking about Madden. He said something about the one. They were looking because they went after the one guy because they didn't want the one player because he's not highly rated in Madden football. I mean,
how's that happen?
And then obviously Woody Johnson, that never happened. But the whole point of it is that's what you deal with NFL owners. You have GMs that are basically meddling. Jacksonville fired their coach, but they're keeping Trent Baalke, who got Jim Harbaugh fired in San Francisco. That evidently, when you hear, nobody seems to like the guy.
Yeah.
And now they're going to go get a coach. And then if you're a head coach, do you want to go
in that situation?
Do you want to walk it? No.
No, absolutely not.
No, if you're a head coach, you're going to say, hey, I want my GM. I want the guy at least that I don't trust. Evidently, there's these issues, these rumors come out of Jacksonville that, Trent Baalke's not a very good, he's a GM. He likes to do the blame game and he blames the coach.
Well, of course he does.
When he screws up.
He retains his job and the coach gets fired. We're getting this with Cleveland with the analytics.
Right, same thing.
That drives me crazy. Let the coaches and their staff coach. Don't call up there and get on the computer and say, well, it's it's 3rd and 2. They're telling me to throw the ball or they're telling me just run a straight dive.
Right.
If you don't got the players, let the coaches coach anymore. These GMs, I want to go up there and strangle that guy for Cleveland. He drives me nuts. You little worm, I want to kill you, what you've done to this team.
This is what you get on the NFL level. So that's why I personally think that Bill Belichick won't coach in the NFL because it's not the way it used to be when he coached.
I bring this up every time we talk. Nick Saban. He got out because he can't coach the way he used to coach. And that's at the college level where you don't have all the stuff, but you're dealing with all the other garbage that comes with it, and you can't keep players. But at the pro level, you've got too many in the front office that's telling you when, why, how, and this is what you got to do. And that just doesn't work.
Nick Saban, one of the greatest college coaches of all time. He coached all through college. He coached 2 years in the NFL. That was it. And got back to college.
Yeah, he hated it.
He never coached in the NFL before that either. Saturday morning sports page right. Back after the timeout.
You're listening to WRDB, Western Reserve Digital Broadcasting, Youngstown, Warren, Salem, and around the world. You're listening to Western Reserve Radio at westernreserveradio.com on the Live 365 network and the Live 365 app.
This is Matt Lipsack, the voice of the Youngstown Phantoms, and your home for Phantoms hockey is Western Reserve Radio.
Welcome to Calvin's Barbershop.
You all got to see this.
I don't even want to know what you're looking at on that phone.
Well, you should. I was learning about the dangers of high blood pressure and that we need to get ours checked regularly. High blood pressure can increase the risk of heart attack or stroke, but this text program can help keep it at a healthy range. Just text Barbershop to 97779 to sign up.
I'll get right on it as soon as I'm done with this baby panda video.
Text Barbershop to 97779. A message from the American Heart Association and the Ad Council.
Western Reserve Radio is the Valley's online source for sports talk and local live events. Tune in and be a part of their live weekly shows, as well as all of the hard-hitting action of Youngstown Phantoms hockey, high school football, and the GDFL. Find them at westernreserveradio.com. Tune in and the Live 365 app to be a part of the area's sports conversation. Be sure to visit them on Facebook at Western Reserve Radio and on Twitter at WR_radio.
Saturday morning sports page back. When you're on, I think we're changing the name of this show to Lunatic Radio.
I'm sorry. No. And you know what? Here's what I'm going to tell you. And Jim will tell you this. It's a coach in me.
I know.
You know, you can take the coach off the football field, but you can't take the football out of the coach.
Before we go further, I need to correct myself. Right at the end of the hour, I screwed up. I said Saban never coached in the NFL before the Dolphins. That's totally wrong. In 1988 to 89, he was the Houston Oilers defensive back coach. 1990, he coached in Toledo. Then he was actually the defensive coordinator under Bill Belichick from 1991 to 1994.
Yes,
then
with Cleveland.
For Cleveland Browns. He was the D coordinator for Belichick in 91 to 94 for the Browns. Then He went to Michigan State from 95 to 99, to LSU from 2000 to 2004. He had the 2 years at the Dolphins, 2005 and 2006. And he was 15 and 17. That was his NFL career. He was actually the head coach of Toledo from he was hired in December 22nd of 89. And they were coming off a 6-5 season. Saban was 9-2 his 1 year in Toledo. Then he left there and became a D coordinator under Bill Belichick from 91 to 94. He stayed there 4 seasons. And then he went to Michigan, became a head coach from 95 to 97. So, and then his record with the total NFL record was 15 and 17. So he kind of struggled as an NFL coach. Not a bad, horrible, but according to his standards, not what he wanted it to be. Goes back to college, Alabama, and he is probably the best. He may be the greatest coach in college history.
I know
one of the greatest.
Absolutely, he is or was. When he was at Toledo, I know this for a fact. He told that team, "You got me for 1 year because this is just a stepping stone for me." It's exactly what he did.
Yep.
And look what he did with the program.
9-2, 1 year.
1 year, and then he was out.
Yep.
He did tell that team that.
Did play at Kent State, and I believe he played with Jack Lambert.
He did.
Good friends with Lambert.
Yep.
So Saban, great, yeah. And like I said, you could make the argument he might be the greatest NFL and not college coach ever. I mean, every year he had Alabama in the national title game, it seemed, and they were usually winning it or they would lose it now and then. But he was he owned the national title game every year pretty much.
You know, they said, well, we don't like Saban. He's arrogant. I said, no, he's not. I said, watch him coach. Watch how he takes these kids under his wings. You only see a part of him. You got to really dig deep into him. How family oriented he was to these kids. How his wife was involved. You guys have no idea. You just see that I'm going to get in your rear end, and this is how it is. But that's a part of coaching. That's that era. That's for those old. I won't say old timers because I'm one, but that's how we coached. I mean, that's just how it was. But he produced. I don't care what you said, and players loved him because they wanted that discipline. That's the bottom line.
Well, you were talking earlier, and I thought this is interesting that you brought this up about Marcus Freeman, being, wanting his players to go to Mass.
Yes.
Well, this just so happens I'm reading this about Nick Saban. It says Saban is a devout Catholic. He arranged for himself and his players who were Catholic to receive Mass before each game. Mm-hmm. Usually a local clergy presided over the brief services. And they go on about how he attends St. Francis Assisi University Parish in Tuscaloosa, and goes on. He says that St. Francis Parish priest Father Gerald Holloway served as a chaplain for the football team before he was transferred. So the point is, it seems that the coaches have a unity, very religious players, etc. So again, Marcus Freeman obviously going in the right direction if you're a Notre Dame fan, and I don't think he would go to the NFL. And let's get to the NFL because we're going to do our picks here, our wild card picks. But I guess with these openings now, you've got the Raiders have fired their coach. You see, and I don't think that's first of all, that's not a good team to go to. That's why I say this is, first of all, you don't have a home field advantage.
Right.
To start. Every game you play is a road game because you watch the games on TV and you can hear the opposing fans for the road teams. They're louder than your own fans. You don't have many fans there.
Yes.
So to me, it's a bad venue as far as just from, you don't have a fan base.
Right.
Then you have no quarterback. So if you're going to take that head coach job and then you have a hair trigger owner, I mean, the Raiders, how many? I'll look this up. And how many head coaches have they basically had? I know that it's an outrageous. They have been through coaches
like Cleveland.
Exactly. In fact, they may be worse than Cleveland. When you look at the Raiders head coach history, real quick, when I pull it up here, let's just say here's basically their let's look at the coaches. They had Gruden got to the Super Bowl from 98 to 2001. Bill Callahan was there for basically 2 years, 15 to 17. Norv Turner was there 2 years, 9 and 23. Art Shelley brought him back. He lasted a year. Lane Kiffin came in for 2 years. Tom Cable was there for basically 2 years. Then Hugh Jackson was there a year. Dennis Allen was there for 3 years, 8 and 28. Tony Sperano was basically there 1 year, 3 and 9. And then ultimately Jack Del Rio was there for 3 years. John Gruden comes back for 2 years. Then they moved to Vegas, so he stays another year. And then it's Rich Bisaccia, Josh McDaniels for 2 years, and now Antonio Pierce a year and a half. Now they are paying 4 coaches. Mark Davis is paying 4 coaches. They have had a revolving door with head coaches that there's absolutely no right. Why would you go if you are a candidate looking at the Raiders' history with their coaches?
Why would you take it?
Why would you? And you have no quarterback on top of all this. I just rattled off all the coaches that there were since 2000.
But if you listen to those names, a lot of them are coordinators. Josh McDaniels, here's what I say, and I've said this for years. There are some people who make good position coaches, offense, defensive coordinators, but yet they cannot make it as a head coach. They just don't have it. And that's where I feel that Josh McDaniels is. I think he's a great coordinator, but he's just not a good head coach. So that's what's happened to, if you hear some of those names, that's what you get there. Some of those were coordinators. They just don't make it big time as a head coach. They need to stay as coordinators. That's just my opinion. So they're trying to get these guys. Yes. Oh, he's a coordinator. He's offense. That's what we need. But okay, I understand that. But do you run the team? You got to be able to run the team. And that's the bottom line with any level of coaching. You know, just because you're the cap doesn't mean you have to call the plays. Get an offense and a defensive coordinator. Here's what I want you guys to do. And then manage the team. That's all I have always said.
Since I believe they had since 1994. Art Shell was there from 89 to 94.
Yes.
Since Art Shell left in 94, they've had 17 coaches.
Well, like I said, we're right there with them. That's crazy. Wow.
Yeah, 17.
Well, okay.
And they're going to have 18 when they hire the new guy.
And that's they're no different than what Cleveland did. Yeah. Cleveland was going through them. That was a revolving door.
At least you've kept Stefanski and we're keeping, which I think is a good move.
I do too.
But so that job is probably one of the bottom jobs to take. I mean, I wouldn't want the Raider job because, again,
you know why somebody would take it?
Oh yeah,
I was a head coach. Here's my record, but it was the Raiders, but I was a head coach.
Right.
And that's what happens.
And there's only 32 of these jobs around.
Exactly.
So you will jump, and you always think, and you have to think this way. I can turn it around. I can bring the staff
absolutely.
in. I can be the difference maker, that's the only way you could take that job logically and say, I could do something with it. You got to have the power of positive thinking here. I could turn it around.
Right.
My team, my group, I will get, and they fired the GM after 1 year, Tedesco. He's gone. So now you're going to get a GM and a coach, which I guess in reality,
that could be a good thing.
That's a good thing because I'm convinced, like with Jacksonville, you keep Trent Baalke and you fire the coach Peterson. You've got to take it both. You got to start over.
Right.
If you're firing your coach, you pretty much
got to get rid of you. Yes, I agree.
Losing, if you're a loser, You got to get rid of all of it. You got
clean house.
Yes. I mean, I hate to say it, but the Raiders. I mean, and Jacksonville's another team. If they don't fire the GM, and that's another bad job. That they're not good jobs. I mean, Jacksonville and the Raiders, and I think that's one reason why Belichick's probably not going to come back and coach, because he sees these jobs and they're not any good. New Orleans, who needs a coach, they're in absolutely cap hell. And
why would you go there?
Why would you go there? Because
you're stuck. You got it's a dead end job. You can't even bring anybody in.
And again, you're really not in a good position to really do. And you have Carr, the quarterback. He's all right, but
he's 50% at best.
Right, and he's always hurt.
Yeah, he's either hurt or he has great game, but then he's
up
games
and down.
He's not consistent.
If you're a Marcus Freeman and you're a Ryan Day, and you think
ain't happening,
right? Why would you?
If it does, I will be completely shocked. You can't leave an Ohio State and a Notre Dame to go here.
And that's what I mean. You could make the argument that these jobs are worse than if you're going to rate jobs, these jobs are obviously worse than Ohio State and Notre Dame. I wouldn't take either one of these jobs.
And when you talk about college football, what are the schools that you think are your number one, the greatest teams in college football? You're going to say Ohio State, Notre Dame, USC used to be. They've fallen off the map.
Right, because
Oklahoma, they've fallen off the map. I'll give you even a better one. Florida. What happened to Florida? Florida State. They're mediocre at best anymore. So when you look at that, and I'm in a position to be on the greatest college football team, or why would I want to go to a Raiders team that all it's going to be is headaches and I'm not going to sleep? Down. Right. Oh, of course it is. Absolutely.
Overall, when you look at the Raiders, it's sad because growing up, the Raiders were like, first of all, it was a great team to root for or root against. And everybody hated the Raiders or loved the Raiders. They were real love.
Oh, absolutely.
And
it was Al Davis.
And then the players were bad. Ben Davidson was a dirty player. He was that big.
They all were.
They all were dirty. They were the dirtiest team out there.
They loved when they got Alzado.
Right. He fit the bill.
He was there.
Because he was there. But all those guys were, and they all hated those guys.
Oh,
but the point is, they were the Raiders, and everybody either loved them or hated them. And that was the best. But now, they're actually no fan base.
No.
They moved to Vegas, which I think is still a big mistake. And there's no...
Well, the people where were they before they were Oakland, before they moved there?
Well, it was L.A.
L.A. But see, here's the thing. They begged them not move this team there. Keep it here. Keep it there. Every time you saw a game, it was a sellout. What was the problem? Was it the stadium? They wanted a new stadium?
Yeah.
And so that's what it was.
It was the stadium. It came down.
I can understand that.
Because it was basically, that's what it was. It was L.A. was a stadium. Davis wanted to build the luxury place down in L.A., never did it. Coliseum was not a good place to watch. I went to a game at the L.A. Coliseum years ago when I was out there on business.
Well, you're so far away.
Oh, my God, yeah. We went to an exhibition game. The Raiders were playing Washington, and it was like we got tickets, and it was a horrible game. I think it was like you're way away. It's almost like I'm sitting here, and they're playing way away. And you had the track there. It was just a horrible place to watch a game. But the whole point of it is they're bad. You look at rate these NFL jobs. New England was a good job, but now, you've got Kraft, who I don't think is a meddling owner. I think he made a bad hire. He hired a guy that just wasn't ready.
Well, that was the other problem. You got to look at this, though. He had the best of the best. And then when Brady left or retired or whatever, the NFL helped him win that Super Bowl. I don't care what they say. Okay, he gets that Super Bowl, plays, and he's done. Kraft stuck. Now Belichick leaves. They're a mediocre team now.
Yeah, when Brady left, they started to hit the skid.
Yeah,
and then Belichick now it's just now he's got to start over and he's got to find. Now that's the question: is all this discussion? Where's Rabel going? Mike Rabel is obviously the number one guy.
I love him.
Everybody likes him. Then if you're Mike Rabel, we'll play that game, and then we'll get to our picks here for the wild card. Maybe talk some of these games. But if you're Mike Rabel, the Raiders, Brady now is that 10% owner.
Yeah, but
do you want to play with for Brady or with Brady or however you want to, or have him over you? And he and Rabel have a good relationship, but like somebody was saying, but if sometimes when you coach, your relationship can go down south quickly. And that's not always good either. So the point is they need a GM and a coach, but if you're Mike Rabel, who you seem to be the Jets are dysfunctional.
Yeah, you don't want nothing to do with the Jets.
You don't report to the GM, you report to the owner. The GM reports to the owner. It's one of the screwiest setups. So the Jets, then you got the Saints and the Bears now are open. And now there's talk that Mike McCarthy allegedly is going to go back to Dallas. Jerry's not going to let him go, and Jerry's going to sign Mike McCarthy to a new deal because his deal is up January 14th. Mike McCarthy's deal is up.
Why would you keep him? He's not good.
Well, the point is, Jerry's thinking the team was not that good because you didn't do anything in the offseason, Jerry, to improve the team. You had no running game. You didn't, and you could have got what's his name from the Ravens, the running back.
Yeah.
He was a free agent. The Titan running back was a free agent. Derrick Henry. You could have got Derrick Henry, and you passed on him, and he goes to the Ravens, and now
he's running all over.
Yeah, he's running over everybody like he always does. And you could have had him, but you passed on him, and he goes to the Ravens. You have no running game, and then you give Dak Prescott, who's to me an average quarterback at best,
at 100%.
They're giving him $60 million, which is going to kill your cap and getting other players. So you've just totally mismanaged this team. And I would say to the other end, if I'm Mike McCarthy, why would I want to go back and work for this guy and this team?
I wouldn't.
And this guy gives a radio show every week. Jones has got that radio show every week. He goes on and he's on and on and on about the team. He's answering questions. He probably, inadvertently throws half the team under the bus. So you're dealing, if you're McCarthy, you're thinking, do I want to coach for this guy?
And he shouldn't, unless he wants a job. Well, unless he wants, I'm going to keep the job. My house is here.
Right.
That's baloney. I wouldn't. Anybody who wants to coach for Dallas with him, I've seen it for years. He's down on the sidelines telling coaches, this is what you got to do. Go in your box.
Right. That's why you haven't.
At the end of the year, fire me, and then you can run the team.
You haven't been in an NFC final in over, it's going on, it'll be 30 years.
Because Prescott, as you said, he's average at best, and he's always hurt. Now, Coach Noble, that's his team. He'll tell you, he does well during the season, but they can't get, once they get near the playoffs, they are just fall apart. It's horrible.
And this year they don't make the playoffs.
No, they're out. You have no running game. You held on to Zeke too long.
Yeah, Zeke's done. He's a free agent. You can sign
he's
him.
done.
He's done.
But you held on to him. Yeah, you want to say, wow, we brought him in. We want to take care of him. You want to make money and you want to get to the playoffs and stuff. You can't look at it that way. Why are you keeping these guys? They're slugs. They're not doing anything for you. Yeah, it looks good on paper. Oh, we won 9 games.
Your problem you've got now is you've got to deal with the fact that the team's not that good on paper, and now you've got $60 million invested in Dak Prescott.
Yeah.
Where we get into this conversation all the time, quarterback starts sliding all that money to the quarterback. They don't have enough to spread around. Where Baker Mayfield signed a great deal, a team-friendly deal with Tampa Bay. Like, I believe, I'll pull it up, but I believe Baker's only making like $30 million. But that gives the team the flexibility of signing other players. And
I don't care what anybody says. You talk to anybody that played with Baker, and I see it all the time. First of all, they love him. And second of all, hey, Bake, let's go out and get a beer. All right, what time you want to go? But that's how he is.
Yeah, like
he's like a regular guy. That's what you want. You want a guy that's going to run down there and push on somebody because he knocked a player down. He's going to go in there and scrap with you. How do you not want a guy like him? It just nothing makes sense.
Baker basically made $35 million,
and that's a steal
this year, and he'll make $45 million next year. So Dak's making over, and then the way they have it figured out, his base is 40, and the signing bonuses, they prorate it. So they spread that signing bonus, but his base salary is $40 million next year. It's $30 million next year. I'm wrong. $30 million 2025, and then he'll do $40 million in 2026.
And that's a steal.
And that's a steal. And now the team it doesn't choke the cap, and they have flexibility. Like, here's a percentage of the league cap hit. It's only 13% next year and 15%. So that gives the team a lot of flexibility. But Baker loves playing down in Tampa Bay, loves everybody. Everybody loves him.
Oh, they love him.
And they love him. And and on top of it, he's really a good quarterback.
He's a team player.
Yeah, and a team player. And he's not killing your cap. And you're really getting the maximum performance for your money with Baker Mayfield.
Oh, he's bargain basement.
Right. That's a bargain. Which
$30 million, and look what he's done already with this team. And what you got with Prescott and some of these Watson.
Yeah. Yeah, Watson's basically killing the team.
He's killing it. He's making double, almost triple.
Right. When you start looking at the cap hit numbers, this is what blows you away. Baker's dead cap money after next year is only $17 million.
Yes.
Which isn't bad. Now, the cap hit would be $45 million, but you're not letting him go.
Oh, no. They'll never let him go.
You've got the guy that's going to perform to the contract.
Correct.
And exceed the contract.
That's what you
want.
We
always get into the discussion here in any sport, any pro sport with contracts. You win games when your players exceed their contract.
Yes.
You usually lose games when they don't perform to the contract.
How many times?
With a capped league or salary league, a salary cap league, that's basically unbelievably important.
Well, how many times do you see quarterbacks, running backs make this big amount?
Yeah.
Oh, and then they come back that year and they flop.
Zeke Elliott.
Yeah. Is it, I got my money now. I don't have to beat myself up anymore. I mean, I don't know. That's sure. Over the years, that's always, as a coach, I always looked at it and said, it's like he doesn't give a shit. He doesn't care.
He doesn't care. And that's the sad part. The sad part is you've got to get, when you get players underperforming the contract, usually teams will struggle. When you get the quarterback, like Brady always took a discount every year, so it gave Kraft the flexibility
to bring in people he needed.
Right. So it always helped the team take in less money at the quarterback spot. Once they start to pony up and give the quarterback all the money, the team inherently struggles because they don't have enough to spread it and, get the
100%.
Right.
I agree with you.
Or they got to hit the draft because those are the contracts.
But you're not, and what are you going to get?
Right. And therein lies your other problem is the draft is a crapshoot because you don't know how good the player. It's just you can get a guy in the 4th or 5th round who's a heck of a lot better than the guy in the 1st round. You can get that. I mean, there is absolutely no rhyme or reason as far as when you look at all the 1st round drafts that haven't made it, it's mind boggling. These guys drafted in the 1st round
because they're college players, they're not NFL players.
Right. And you just don't
Chris
know.
Sims was one of them.
Right.
Very good, very good college player. But he could remember plays. Although I've heard Gruden's calling plays and I'm going, what did he say?
Well, and that could be too. There's probably a lot.
But still,
but the point of it, the point of it is with when you're building the team, the contracts, how you spread the money around. You only have so much of a pie to cut to spread, sort of to speak, and you can't give a giant piece to a mediocre quarterback.
And that's
a la Dallas Cowboys.
Well, that's why I like that the rookie contracts are lower now. They got to prove yourself. Right. You're no good. Get rid of them.
Right. And that's why Denver has made a run at the playoffs because and that's how they got out from the Russell Wilson debacle of $85 million cap hit is because they drafted Bo Nix, the rookie.
And he's doing great.
He's doing great. And he's under the rookie contract for the next, 3 years, so they can get out from under the Russell Wilson debacle of the contract, i.e. Cleveland Browns. you're going to have to do that is that the Cleveland Browns are going to have to draft a quarterback. I don't know which one, but they're going to have to draft one of these guys. They'll have the second pick. Tennessee's got the first pick. I don't know if Tennessee goes quarterback or not, or do they stay with Will Levis? We'll know as we evolve.
I don't think they will,
but they just fired their GM, Rand Carthon. Now you talk about a team that's
dysfunctional.
It's like Seinfeld. Kramer and George are running it. Rand Carthon is the GM. They bring him in. He's there 1 year. They like what he's doing. They give him a contract extension, right? Following year, they're not doing so good. They fire him.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So that makes a lot of sense. You bring a guy in after 1 year, you love him. You'll love him so much, you got to give him a contract extension. The following year, he went from doing such a great job, contract extension, to such a lousy job. Now he's out the door. You fire him.
And you lose that money.
Oh,
yeah. He's got a contract.
You got to pay
What
him.
are you thinking?
Yeah.
Just because you're good this year, you got to look at injuries, trades. You got to look at all that stuff. You can't hang that. Some of these guys are horrible. But you can't hang that on a lot of stuff with injuries and this and that. It just can't be done.
Anyway, we're going to talk more about this. We got to get to the picks.
Make your picks.
We'll get there. No college picks. Saturday morning sports page. Back after this.
During the fall and winter, grilling season never ends, and Gessler Propane is your local supplier that makes sure you get your hard-earned money's worth. Why go to gas exchanges to pay higher prices for tanks not filled to capacity? Gessler Propane makes sure you're prepared for year-round grilling with 100% filled tanks at a reasonable cost. See Bob Monday through Friday, 10 to 4, and Saturday, 9 to 3 at Gessler Propane, 702 Youngstown Poland Road, Struthers, or call 330-755-9119. Gessler Propane. They got gas.
The Mahoning Valley's leader for golf, Milk Creek Golf Course, is now booking tee times for 2024. We offer stay and play opportunities available with 9 area hotel partners. For more information, visit our website at millcreekmetroparks.org. Also, look for new, exciting opportunities coming soon, including an indoor player development center with Trackman, an indoor Callaway Club Fitting Center, and an Odyssey Fitting Studio in 2024. Follow us on Facebook at Milk Creek Golf Course or call 330-740-7112.
Hey, let me ask you something. Would you seat your 3-year-old child on a windowsill? Would you seat them beside a lit fireplace or by the deep end of a pool? One last question. Would you seat your child in a car seat that's not correct for them? Car crashes are a leading killer of children ages 1 to 13. Secure their future. Seat them in the correct car seat. For more information, visit safercar.gov/the right seat. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Question. When you walk into the boardrooms of the most successful companies here in Ohio, who do you meet? Answer. Men and women who play high school sports. Education-based high school sports give us more than athletes we can root for. They give us leaders we can depend on. Question. So where will we find tomorrow's leaders? Answer. High school sports.
This message presented by the Ohio High School Athletic Association and the Ohio Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association. Looking for future leaders we can believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Ohio. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It includes learning to listen, accepting responsibility, being a good role model, and it's about respect. The result, it transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. This message presented by the Ohio High School Athletic Association and the Ohio Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association.
Saturday morning sports page coming right back at you. We talked a lot about the coaching. vacancies in the NFL.
Carousel is
the carousel. It's a mess.
Yeah.
We talked about the GM Rand Carthon, which makes no sense at all. I don't understand. You give the guy a contract extension, and then the year later you fire him. It makes no sense whatsoever. Now they got to get a GM and a coach there in Tennessee. Why Vrabel left? They fired him. I think he wanted to leave. Who the hell knows? If you're Vrabel, you're looking at what I don't think really any of these jobs are really appealing. I don't think the Saints are in cap hell. That's not a good job.
Chicago, maybe.
Chicago, that's a dysfunctional owner. They're screwy. Right. But you got a quarterback in Chicago I think you can win with. He's young, he's raw, but I think if you get the coach and the team...
We got to get the right people around him.
And you got to get an offensive line
sure.
around him. I think you've got a guy that's talented and win. That makes the Chicago job. And McCarthy's supposedly interested in the Chicago job. Jerry doesn't want him to leave. Now, Chicago's interested in him. And I think McCarthy, he's thinking, I got a guy in Chicago, a quarterback, I think I could work with.
Right.
He's young. I can win with him.
him.
I know I can't win with Dak Prescott. Let's go to the phone. And then we got Irish Mike. On the sports page, what's going on?
Good morning, gentlemen. How you guys doing?
Hey, Irish Mike, what's happening?
Good morning.
Not too much. Hey, I'm not trying to insinuate that the college football season is long, but Ohio State starts spring practice on Monday, March 10th, and Notre Dame starts spring practice on Thursday, March 13th. And today's January 11th.
And they're going to play January 20th.
Yes. I mean, we were talking last night after the game. I said, if there's players on the roster, you're going to get about 9 or 10 weeks off, and then you're right back at it again for 6 weeks.
Well,
right? I mean,
I agree with you, but I mean, what else can you do? Because
they are
just.
I know what Lucia's going to talk about the money and all this stuff's not going away. I mean, in regards to conference championships, and they're going to expand the field, and obviously, like even the NFL wants to have their Super Bowl. They want to go to 18 games and play their Super Bowl on the third Sunday in February instead of the second Sunday in February because of they can make it on President's Day weekend where everybody has off the next day. Everybody's happy. They don't have to go to work.
Boy, you got that right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know this is all money driven. We all understand it's about money. And it just, and I know you're a Notre Dame fan, but think about this for a second. The second day of practice was on August 1st, and Charles Jagasaw, the starting left tackle, tore his pec muscle. And we were told he was out for the entire year.
Right.
Okay?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then all of a sudden, about a week before the Indiana game in the middle of December, I think it was December 16th, he practiced for the first time, after being out for 4.5 months. And then last week against Georgia, he was on some field goal and PAT teams where he played 5 or 6 plays just on field goals and extra points. And then the other night against Penn State, Billy Schroff gets hurt, and he goes in at right guard and plays, probably 20, 25 plays. And he did okay for a guy that hasn't played since December of 2023.
Right.
But that tells you how long the season is. When you said you're out for the season, you're not playing, then literally 4.5 months later, you're practicing it because it's 4.5 months later.
Well, when they say out for the season, that would be the season. Now this is extra.
Correct, yeah. Yes.
Well, right.
I guess my point, Lucia, is the season's so damn long that sometimes, it's 4 months, 4.5 months is a long time to, to be out for any player on any level.
But Irish Mike, I got one thing to ask you though. In the last 20 years, do you feel what has happened so far this year, you're going to finally get a true national champion?
Well, this year.
I mean, I think people have a problem with how the seedings went this year and who was seeded where and why and how the board came down and who got buys and who didn't get buys. And,
they got to scrap the buy thing. So I agree with you on that one.
Yeah, because all the teams that got buys lost.
I mean, probably not in per se that, my friends were talking last night. The first year we went to a Final Four was 2014. Ohio State beat Oregon. Without a Final Four, even though Ohio State makes that great one and beats Wisconsin 59-0 Big Ten championship game, they would not be one of the final two teams to play in the championship game that year. They would have got locked out even though they end up winning it because of the new system going from 2 to 4. They were the number 4 seed, beat Alabama, and beat Oregon. They would have not gotten in.
That's correct. Right? And there was people complaining Baylor should have got in.
Yep.
And then we had the Final Four, Pat, for 4 years or 10 years, excuse me.
Right,
This is our
10.
new year format. If we had the old format, the Final Four, okay?
Ohio State
Final
wouldn't get
Four,
in.
Ohio State would not have been in it this year,
Nope.
right?
That's
After they
correct.
lost to Michigan.
100%. They lost to Michigan. They would not be a top 4 team.
Because I heard a show,
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I heard a show the other night saying, I'm so glad it's the Final Four. You know, in the old system, these would have been the Final Four teams anyway. So I'm glad it's, you know, Ohio State, Texas, Notre Dame, Penn State, because under the old format, this would have been the Final Four team. And I'm sitting there looking at the TV saying, what are these morons talking about? That's just not true. That's not true.
Notre Dame doesn't get in Final Four.
Under the old format, if we just had a Final Two, Pat, if we just did the old format from 15
They don't
years
get
ago,
in under Final Two, but
Yeah,
they
it
might
would've
not get under who. The other question is, and that's a good question. Does Notre Dame get
the
in?
Final Two, if we the old format, Pat, who gets in? The Final Two would have been Oregon versus Georgia in the national title game, correct?
That's it.
You're
we
right.
all agree on that, right?
What would be the Final Four?
Oregon, Georgia.
Right.
I honestly, I have to say probably Texas would sneak in there somewhere because the SEC bias.
Yep.
Yeah, you'd get, and then you would probably get. Then who's your other fourth team get in?
Penn State.
Oh,
I know it sounds crazy. Would have been Penn State.
Well, here's where I disagree with people. Okay, I would still think Notre Dame sneaks in. Here's why.
They would.
Why.
Here.
2 years ago in 22, when Ohio State lost at home to Michigan, and when they had those 2 big long touchdown runs, and everybody was all over Ryan Day at the game in Columbus.
Right.
If you recall, Ohio State slipped from 2 to 5 or 6, and then USC played in the Pac-12 championship game against Oregon, Las Vegas, and Caleb Williams got hurt in a calf in the second quarter and came out of the game, and USC ended up losing that game. If USC wins that game, they're in the Final Four. It's winning, you're in.
Yep.
So they got pushed out.
Right, they got pushed out.
That's why I kind of disagree with the committee this year, Pat, in regards to saying we're not going to penalize teams for conference championship games. When we had a Final Four, they sure as hell did it.
Yeah. Here.
They sure as hell did it when we had a Final Four. You got penalized. USC got penalized 2 years ago for losing the Oregon at the conference championship game. That's a fact. It's not an opinion. It's a fact.
Here, if you want to take this for what it's worth, if you go by the letter of the law here, if you go by the college football playoff rankings, not the top 25 AP, no. If you go by the college football playoff rankings, Oregon is 1, Georgia 2, Texas 3, Penn State 4, Notre Dame would be 5. But if you go over to the AP top 25, Oregon 1, Georgia 2, Notre Dame 3, Texas drops to 4, Penn State goes to 5. Then the big debate.
The committee this year, Pat, they had 12 teams compared to 4 in the past, right? Let's be honest.
So again, makes it they could finagle. The only question would have come down is, would Notre Dame get left out of the Final Four and Penn State gets in? Or because that would have been your debate here. If you look at it, Oregon and Georgia, you guys already said it is in. Looks like Texas would fall in. The debate would really come down to Notre Dame or Penn State.
Because they're not in a conference. And I think that's baloney because Notre Dame has never been in a conference. That is what the school demands. That's what they do, and they play whatever. But they have proven this year it doesn't matter who they play because look what they have done this year.
Even though James Franklin doesn't agree with you because he says that James Franklin says before the game, they should.
Was that not an awkward press conference?
Oh,
was
brutal!
That not awkward?
Brutal!
He's ridiculous.
Brutal.
He's sour.
I mean, it was before the game. Why would you say that before a game anyway?
Exactly.
He says that before the game. It was brutal.
Now, you don't think Notre Dame knew that? Not, they probably went out on the field.
Yeah, don't give, coaching 101. Don't give the opposing team billboard information to get fired up.
Yeah, you don't put gasoline on a fire. You just don't do that.
I mean,
I know a lot of people know him pretty well, and they said if you saw Marcus Freeman's face as the press conference went on, and later on he mentioned his age being 38 years old, and he had a nice head of hair and all that other stuff. I think that was awkward. Like they said that you kind of know Marcus Freeman. It was almost like if you guys saw the end of the Indiana game when he shook that head coach in Indiana's hand, there was kind of a frostbite warning there, saying like, I'm done with this guy.
Oh yeah.
At the end of the press conference with James Franklin, it kind of felt that way.
Yeah,
too.
same
I'm
way
done
too.
With this guy.
Franklin doesn't get. Franklin has no type of sense of where you are, and
he's a statue.
Yeah,
there's no feeling, nothing. They shouldn't be here. We're better.
Hey,
well, we just got beat.
Pat Lucia, and we were talking to two Notre Dame fans here, and maybe I'm sorry. Wait, I forget your name. I apologize. What's your name again?
Bob. Coach Bob.
Coach Bob.
Coach Bob. I'm sorry.
You're all right. You're okay.
Yeah. Coach Bob. I told anybody that would listen yesterday, and Pat knows I'm a diehard Notre Dame fan.
Right.
If I'm a Penn State fan yesterday, I'm livid with James Franklin.
Yeah, you are.
If you couldn't beat that Notre Dame team Thursday night, the way they played, with the mistakes they made, turnovers, the penalties, the giving up 5 sacks on the offensive line, which is uncharacteristic, only rushing for 80 some odd yards, if you look at all the statistics and you break them down the game, you look at it even today and say, how in the world did Notre Dame win that game? How? Explain it to me.
Well, I'll tell you how they won it, and this is what happened. And as you watch that game, and this is too obvious to me.
Oh, yeah.
That first half, when Notre Dame kicked that field goal to be down by one score, after getting pretty much getting their doors
they got handled
and getting their butt kicked for the first half, and only be down by 7
But even
points.
if they don't kick it, they're still only down by 10. So I give that to Freeman, because I tell you why. They went in there, and I guarantee you it wasn't, okay, boys, let's go.
No,
he probably put a foot in a few people's rear ends and said, this is Notre Dame. We don't play like that. Go out there and prove yourself. And it was night and day. It's like a whole new team came out there.
But two things that jumped out.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I talked to some people, guys, Tuesday night and Wednesday who followed the team for 25, 30, to report on it daily. Their biggest concern to me privately was they were afraid that, quote, Notre Dame was out of gas. That, they obviously Penn State had 9 days between games. Notre Dame had 7. And Pat, I'm not trying to be funny here, but Penn State played Boise State, Notre Dame played Georgia, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Big difference.
There's a difference.
No,
yes, I agree with you. That's exactly what I said.
Yeah.
They played the tougher schedule. Penn State didn't. Boise, I love Boise. Don't get me wrong. They're a great program. But it's Boise against Penn State.
They played SMU.
Yeah.
Who didn't want to play.
Yeah.
They showed Penn State. You could see SMU didn't want to be at Happy Valley in freezing weather. So that was a gift.
Yeah.
And then they turned around. They got a Boise State who sat for 10 days, and they came out rusty as hell. We talked about it earlier.
Yes.
I'm convinced that if Boise State had played in the first round and played Penn State, it might have been different. It could have been a different outlet. It could have been a different game.
I agree.
But Boise State, and I think that's what really, and then Penn State ultimately ran into Notre Dame, but I think Freeman outcoached him.
Yes, second half, 100%.
Outcoached, and then Drew Allard, hello, what are you throwing the ball? I don't understand. I'm going, what is this idiot doing? I'm sorry. What are you throwing the ball like that?
Run the ball.
Run the ball and go into overtime. You were outplaying Notre Dame anyway. You want to get into overtime because you probably would beat them in overtime. But when he threw the interception, I just said, you just gave the game to Notre Dame.
And look at the field position. So why are you throwing that? Just run the ball, go in overtime and
You're
roll the
throwing
dice.
The ball, exactly.
Well, let me ask you this, Pat Lucia, because it's all over TV, and I asked my friends because we talked about at the lunch table at school yesterday. So Penn State gets the ball back. There's like 54, 55 seconds left. They have the ball on their own 13-yard line, first and 10. They run the kid, running back kid, is really good for Penn State. Probably turned pro. And he gains 12 yards and a first down. So the clock stops with 48 seconds left. Now you got first and 10 for the 25. Now, obviously, you're in a hurry up. They didn't want to take they had 2 timeouts. They didn't take their timeouts. They wanted to get set. And they snapped the ball within 3 or 4. They snapped the ball with about 44 seconds left, 43 seconds left, okay? Now, is that predetermined, Pat? Did him and the offensive coordinator go over that, or did that kid just do that on his own regards to we're in 2-minute offense?
Yeah, you don't know.
We'll never know. We'll never know. I don't know. That's a good point, Irish Spike. I don't know. You'll never know.
Maybe they were thinking they'd catch him sleeping.
Everyone I talked to said the same thing, Pat. You run the ball again with the running back again. And if you bust one for another 10 or 15, then you call timeout because you're at your 38-yard line, and there's 32 seconds left to go in the game, and you have one timeout left, and you're in your own 38. You're kind of near midfield where you can take some chances.
Or
if you bust a run, or run a safe screen pass.
There you go.
I was going to say the screen.
That's exactly what I was like.
Because they're coming after you. Throw that screen.
What they should have done if you're going to throw it, do what Ohio State did.
Oh, that was amazing.
And that was the play to Henderson. But that's what I would have thrown. I would have done a screen pass to the running back to the side and see if he breaks it.
Worst scenarios, he gets hit for a loss.
Okay,
who cares?
fine.
You go in overtime. Who gives a crap?
You're going overtime anyway. Because you're really gonna try, but a safe play, a screen pass, and then whatever the heck it is, and then you see,
and then, you threw down in the middle of the field.
Right, he threw down into double coverage
in the middle of the field.
And that's it. He throws it in the middle of the field into double coverage.
Well, he had thrown. Let's be honest. When they took the lead, 24-17. He had thrown an interception earlier in that quarter to triple coverage.
Right.
And it got overruled by a pass interference call, which was, let's be honest, questionable.
Questionable.
That was questionable.
You're allowed to face guard in college and high school. This is not pro football.
Right.
Okay? You are allowed to face guard. It's legal. So I had several officials reach out to me, Pat, during the game who are high school officials who love Ohio State, said that's not pass interference.
No, you're right. I went nuts on it too. Right. Let's say the officiating in these games have been horrible.
Yeah,
I've watched so much holding in both Notre Dame and Ohio State. It's been horrible.
What I will give them, I kind of give them credit for, unless it's egregious holding, they're letting it go, which I think is kind of good because they could turn this into flag fest heaven. And I would rather let them go with the holding because that could be crazy. The interference, I think they still struggle with pass interference. I didn't like the calls on the Ohio State guy.
Oh, my gosh. The Texas guy was getting dragged down and they never called
and they didn't call
had a handful of his jersey.
I know. They're erratic.
Horrible.
But they're not calling a lot of holds, which I think in a roundabout way is good because they could ruin the game. But it is what it is. It's never going to change. But the game, now allegedly, Drew Allard was throwing that ball away that got intercepted. That's what they said, that he allegedly was trying to throw the ball away, but didn't get enough air under it. And then the ND guy got it. But he threw it into double coverage. Again, and when he threw that ball, I'm going, what the heck is he doing?
Yeah.
You're throwing the ball. What do you do? No, run it, play overtime.
Yeah.
And then when he got that ball intercepted and Notre Dame had the field position,
I knew it was over.
They had 2 timeouts. Freeman worked that to the tee and got down there.
But the only thing I was worried about was that kicker. Because he was the guy that sat out.
Right.
But you know what? The game before he kicks a couple of long ones.
But what Marcus Freeman did is he got it down so it was a real easy, makeable field goal.
Yeah.
He didn't do the Ryan Day. Let's take it like against Georgia in the semifinal game. Let the guy kick a 50-yarder. No, get down further. Make it a 30-yarder.
Yes.
So your room for error is a lot less.
And he got it.
But
I thought he was going to hook it, but
no, he got it. And that's, like I said, that goes back to coaching, and Freeman has a pulse of the team. That's what Brian Kelly never had with Notre Dame.
Yeah.
In all the years Kelly had, he always had his mouth, and I still have a good friend of mine to this day, just absolutely hated Brian Kelly.
There's a lot that
every game he hated him. Even when they got into the finals, he didn't want to hear he was a good coach. He hated Brian Kelly. He took him basically a few games. He loves Marcus Freeman. He goes, oh, this guy's unbelievable. Yes. And he goes, he's so much better than Kelly. But and look what Marcus Freeman has done with the team. Let's make the debate. He's really not that most talented team out there, but he's got by far the most out of his players by far.
100%. And again, he comes from the Tressel paddock.
But he comes from Tressel, right.
And that, I still say, made a big difference because Jim gave him that shot as a coach, and he just shined from there.
Now the only reason now they're talking about him going to the NFL, which he won't do.
And I think the thing, too, and Coach will attest to this, I know Ohio State's missing their left tackle and center, and they've changed offensive line a couple times. Those guys got hurt back in October and early November, and they've been out for a few, and they're not coming back this year. And they'll both be off the NFL next year. And I get that, and I talked to friends about that. But, for what Freeman's done this year in this coaching staff with many injuries that Notre Dame's had on both sides of the ball. It's a walking mass unit. Here's the way I look at sports. Don't tell me you have 2 injuries and I have 8 and it's the exact same thing. Because at the end of the day, it's not. It's not the same thing. I have 8 guys out and you have 2. Okay? So don't try to make it, well, it's equal. It's equal. It's not equal. Sorry, it's not.
Well, the other thing to that is you're not talking about Bullfrog U here. You're talking about Ohio State, Notre Dame, who gets the best of the best. These guys ain't getting these slouches. So when somebody goes down, they expect that next guy to stand in and you earn your position.
One thing to your point, Irish Mike, and to that, I think what helps Notre Dame is they don't have nearly the transfer portal people jumping into the portal like these other schools do. So they have a little bit better depth than the Georgias and the Alabamas who just keep having these kids cycling. But
that goes back to Friedman because they want to play for him.
And there you go. You hit the nail on the head.
I disagree with gentlemen. When Notre Dame's season ends, obviously it's going to be on the 20th, one way or the other.
Yeah, one way or the other.
There are guys going in the portal. They just haven't announced it. They cut a deal with these guys 6-7 weeks ago.
Right.
More or less, we know you're going to go. We're going to help you every way we can with emails and phone calls and text messages.
Yes.
But just stay around. I mean,
right. But he's able to keep them. Right. They're going to lose. But he will replenish that team.
Sure.
But he's going to replenish the team.
Oh, yeah.
Recruiting.
It's no different than Ohio State. They're going to come and you're going to get the best of the best. I'm sorry.
And now, I think because of Freeman and their coach, they're going to all want to play for Freeman.
Oh, yeah.
Where Kelly was a little rough around the edges. But Freeman is such a good guy and a good coach. I think you're going to get top players.
He is so much a player coach.
Right.
I could see that.
Obviously, Freeman's first year at Notre Dame was 2021. He left Cincinnati and Luke Fickell when he was defense there for 5 years to become Notre Dame's defense. Remember, he could have went down with what the heck was that LSU coach's name? He won the national title and they soured on Ed
Orgeron.
Orgeron,
yeah. Gone down, with Ed.
Raging.
And every Notre Dame fan thought Freeman would go there because, LSU has more money and they're going to throw more in. Freeman decided, I remember got a text message, Freeman to Notre Dame. I couldn't believe it. I was like, I thought he was going to LSU. And obviously, Kylie's last year at Notre Dame, he was the defensive coordinator. And what was his reputation coming in? He's a really good recruiter. Kids like him. He's a great recruiter.
Right. Yes.
Now was the knock on Brian Kelly, that Brian Kelly did not want to recruit, that Brian Kelly was a very lazy recruiter. He wants to be on the golf course golfing.
Right.
So there are, and I know this for a fact, I won't go down names, but there's probably 12 to 15 kids on that current team right now that are at Notre Dame for one reason only, because of Marcus Freeman.
Yeah,
absolutely. I agree.
And word is going to get around.
If Brian Kelly's still there, these 12 to 15 guys are playing college football at major Division I schools at other places that not named Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Well, I want to tell you something about if Kelly was there this year, they would have never made the playoffs.
No.
I'm telling you, I believe that. He was horrible.
Yeah.
He was terrible. And one thing I hate as a coach, when a kid makes a mistake and he's over, you could see him questioning his quarterback. Now, I understand you got to coach him up, but he was like, there was a cocky attitude of, why'd you do that?
Right.
You should have done this. It's like, just shut up and talk to the kid.
And that's the point. It always amazes me with this coach. You talk about, I'll digress here a little bit. Like Brian Dable, when Jones throws the interception, he throws the tablet at him on the sideline. I'm convinced Dable's well over his head, but that opens that door. I take a guy like Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles is, to me, one of the best coaches in the NFL, but yet they always talk about him getting fired. But Todd Bowles, to me, is one of the best coaches. But he never yells at anybody. He's never yelling at a ref. He sits there. He stares. I mean, Baker Mayfield comes over, he talks to people, and he's never a lunatic. But that's like Marcus Freeman. You don't see him yelling and screaming in people's faces. He's on the line. He goes over. He's talking to him. He's coaching him up. And his approach is so much better.
You know what, Pat? And I agree with that, but coaching football for me, and again, I'm a different era.
Right.
You know what? If somebody kept making the same mistake, dumb mistake, I'm going to get into them.
Right.
I'm going to chew on them. But you know what? But then you've got to put them in your arms and you got to tell them what you need out of them. Because you got to make a negative to a positive or you'll lose these kids. If you're standing there.
I can tell you this, Pat, Lucia. After that pass interference call, the negated interception with 6 minutes left to go in the game, Marcus Freeman was yelling pretty good.
Yeah, he was. But he was upset.
Right. Right.
He had all the reason in the world to do that.
But that's
sure.
fine.
That's just emotion. That's going to happen. You're not going to just stand there and not tell the you got it. You got to open up.
You got to get into the official because that's what you have to do.
But he has such a good rapport from his players.
That's the key.
That and I was saying it earlier on that long run of the 98 yards a couple games before that. The player comes to the side. Yeah, he comes to the sidelines, and here's Freeman. My girl goes, what's he doing? And I go, I know exactly what he's doing. He looked at that kid coming over, and Freeman walked like an old lady. And I said, he went to him and said, you run like an old lady. You're lucky you got that. And the whole sideline's busted out laughing.
Love's the fastest guy on the team. He's playing with a bad knee the last 6 weeks, so that was kind of the joke of the team. But he also said he knew no one was going to catch him.
Yeah, right.
So he wasn't running. Jeremiah Love's not going to be Jeremiah Love until April spring ball because he's going to play again January 20th, but he's not 100%. That's just a reality, unfortunately.
Right.
Yeah, I think the little bit of a rest will help. How much, I don't know.
Yeah, me either.
But
the reality is, Coach, and I think you agree with this statement, maybe Pat agrees with it well, no matter what happens Monday night, January 20th in 9 days, with Marcus Freeman at the helm, this is, I'm an older guy now, but I'm as most confident about Notre Dame football now and moving forward than I've ever been in the last
100%.
We are going to win a national championship in the next 3 or 4. That's going to happen. I'm very confident of that. Maybe you guys agree or disagree.
I go way back on Sunday mornings listening to the Notre Dame replays with Lindsey Nelson. So I saw the Theismans. I saw the Montanas. All those guys. I grew up with those guys and watching how they played.
Do you agree with that, Pat? Do you agree with that statement?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. No, he'll be back.
Oh, yeah.
No, that team.
And you think he can win a national
championship?
Easy.
I think he does.
They
still might. They might win it Monday. I'm still not. I'm not 100% on Ohio State. I know a lot of people. I think it's going to be 8. It's 9.5 points.
Chris Fowler's 100% on Ohio State. Just listen to him at the end of the game last night.
Yeah, well, I know
100% on Ohio State. Just listen to what he said at the end of the game last night.
If you notice some of those announcers, they're so against Ohio State, it's not funny. Or Notre Dame. They're against Notre Dame.
That's it. All right. Thanks, Irish Mike.
Okay, guys.
Next week. God bless, brother.
All right. Thank you, Bob, for coming in. You did a great job. We'll do the picks off air. I knew we weren't getting there. Saturday morning sports page. Stay safe. Do not drink and do not drive. Get a designated driver. We'll be back next week. Saturday morning sports.
Good afternoon.
You're listening to WRDB, Western Reserve Digital Broadcasting, Youngstown, Warren, Salem, and around the world.
Betting Network. This is VEASAN by the Books on VEASAN, the sports betting network.
Dave Ross here, VEASAN by the Books, a brand new time, everybody, 7 to 10 a.m. Eastern on Monday. Mark Dominic's going to be riding shotgun with me. Rich Gannon, our NFL MVP quarterback, will break down everything we see in Wild Card Weekend. We'll see you Monday, 7 a.m. right here on VEASAN.
VEASAN by the Books, weekday mornings from 7 to 10 Eastern on Sirius XM 158 and on the Sirius XM app.
This is VEASAN, the sports betting network. This is VEASAN's Tailgate Show, only on VEASAN, the sports betting network.
Hour 2 of the Tailgate Show, each and every Saturday morning. I'm with you, Tim Murray, live from the Circus Sportsbook from 10 to 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks to all of our affiliates from across the country. Big news, as we've been talking about, less than a week away from our return to Sirius XM. We'll be on channel 158 starting Friday, January 17th. So this very show will be on Sirius XM a week from today. Howdy to all of you on our regional networks that pick us up on the Saturdays as well. Nesson up in New England, Masson in the Mid-Atlantic area. Speaking of the Mid-Atlantic area, my good friend Glenn Clark will help us preview the Ravens and Steelers coming up bottom of the hour in less than 15 minutes. Handicapper Todd Furman from the Bet the Board podcast, as well as CBS Sports HQ, will get his thoughts on all 6 of the wild card games. We're going to dive into what they've said so far this week heading into today's contest. First up, of course, being the Houston Texans and the Los Angeles Chargers. But let's get into a couple best bets for yours truly. I mentioned this to Jim Root, and if you know me by now, this is a game that shouldn't surprise you that I am on. The Texas Tech Red Raiders, currently unranked, and as many odds makers have told us, and most notably to me personally, Chris Andrews said, he doesn't make rankings, he makes ratings. So when you see that the third-ranked team in the country is catching points at an unranked team, be careful. Be careful. And we've seen this market move pretty heavily in Texas Tech's favor. We want to give out current numbers here since it is the day of, and you might just be jumping into these types of games. But from a situational standpoint, really like the spot for Texas Tech here this evening. So I'm going to go with Texas Tech. I'm going to take the money line, look around, shop here in town, has a minus 145. I've seen a couple minus 145s out there. So obviously you don't want to juice out. We talked to Jim Root about this, but Texas Tech, as you look at Grant McCaslin's squad, top 10 in the country in offensive efficiency. Look, Iowa State has been phenomenal this year. Their lone loss came in Hawaii to Auburn in the first round of the Maui Invitational, an Auburn team that, by many metrics, is the number one team in the country, and I would agree with that. They will be number one, assuming they don't lose today to South Carolina when the new rankings come out later this week. So TJ Otzelberger's squad has been just phenomenal this year, top 10 in both offensive and defensive efficiency. But I think home court situation for Texas Tech, you're coming off of a road trip where you were successful at Utah and then a nice win on Tuesday night against BYU. I'm going to take Texas Tech. I'm going to lay the money line here. Looks like cheapest price for a spread is 2.5. Always gets a little bit worrisome there when you're looking at 2.5. The other game, and this one is a hold on to your butt special, I'm going to take Arkansas. Woo Pig Suey. Hey, Tim, didn't you take Arkansas last week as a big dog on the road at Tennessee? Yes, I did. How'd that go? Not well. I'm back with them, baby. And this one might be one of those situations where you could be done to me, Arkansas. But you got one last shot, John Calipari. Now you're at home. You're going to call the Hogs after you, by the way, lost as a favorite earlier this week to Ole Miss. 2 straight SEC losses. You're welcoming in Florida. And Florida, this was a team that we watched a week ago today play one of the best games of the college basketball season in a loss at Rupp Arena, 106-100. Phenomenal game by Todd Golden's squad. What'd they do to respond to that loss? They went out and beat the number one team in the country by 30. Yeah, by 30. They closed a decent favorite in that one. And now you got to go on the road to Arkansas, a desperate Arkansas team. It does make me a little bit nervous be going against this Florida squad. It does make me a little bit nervous to back Woo Pig Suey as they have looked as poor as they have the last 2 games. But this feels to me like the spot. So I will go against Todd Golden's squad in an offense that is 4th in the country in offensive efficiency. I will call the Hogs Woo Pig Suey. I will take the 4.5 with Arkansas. We'll see if this bumps up. It's kind of been hanking around. Open 5.5, went down to 4.5, back at 5. Right now, settle in at 4.5. So I'm going to take Arkansas. See if you can go get the 5. Look around and see if you get the best number out there. And then lastly, I gave this out earlier this week. This was prior to the venue change, and the number actually has gotten better if you're looking to back the dog. And our most recent guest said he believes the Denver Broncos win this game outright. That would be not ideal for your boy here. I've taken the Bills in a teaser, taken them down to 2.5 against the Denver Broncos, and I have paired them up with the Los Angeles Rams, who, by the way, right now you can actually get the Rams at DraftKings at 3, but market-wide it's 2.5. It was trending towards pick earlier in the week. We get the venue change. It's now 2.5. So my teaser from earlier this week, and I'm going to stick with it, Bills minus 2.5, Rams plus 8.5. That is the way I'm looking to attack Wild Card Weekend, and certainly probably could be convinced to play some other spots as well. So let's dive into the games today. Houston and LA, of course, the first game up. The Chargers are a 2.5-point road favorite against D'Amico Ryan's Houston Texans squad. And D'Amico Ryan's, he is well aware just how impressive that Chargers quarterback Justin Herbert is and how challenging it will be to slow him down this afternoon. All right, we will hopefully grab that D'Amico Ryan sound here in just a moment. But right now, sitting at 41.5. Total side is sitting at 2.5. Coming up tonight, we've got Pittsburgh and Baltimore. So let's hear from D'Amico Ryans once again, facing off against Justin Herbert this afternoon.
Justin he's an athletic quarterback. He does a good job of course, just IDing defenses, getting his offense in the correct play, smart decisions with the football. He does a really good job of just protecting the football, which is very impressive. Only 3 interceptions on the year, so we know it'll be very difficult to take the ball away from him. But it'll be a collective effort, right? We have to have a really good rush up front. We got to play our coverages. We have to be disciplined in our coverages, and also knowing that he is athletic enough to escape the pocket and get out, and he can make plays on you there. So really good quarterback. Impressed with what he's done just throughout his career.
Evan Abrams has some good nuggets in his column this week regarding Justin Herbert and his ATS stretch on the road. How about this for Justin Herbert as a road favorite? 7-1 ATS in his last 8 games. And overall, as a road favorite, Justin Herbert is 14-9. It's funny because the Houston Texans are a team that when I look at them, and we'll talk more about this with Todd Furman, I know he has got a best bet, I believe, on this contest. When I look at this Houston Texans team, it was a fade for me heading into the year. They end up winning the division, largely in part to the AFC South being as weak and down as it is. But it does feel a little bit like, man, nobody seems to be wanting to back the Houston Texans. When you go over to vsin.com, you check out our betting splits over from courtesy of DraftKings. The most public side of the weekend at DraftKings, as of now, the Los Angeles Chargers, that short road favorite, Los Angeles Chargers, 79% of the bets right now at DraftKings on the Chargers. And if I could get a 3 like I can at DraftKings, I certainly would be interested in the Houston Texans. Well, the number has continued to grow for the Saturday night affair on Amazon, by the way, tonight, as the Baltimore Ravens are taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Steelers down the stretch, it has not been pretty. They wrapped up the regular season with a 19-17 loss, ended up being a push on the closing number against the Cincinnati Bengals. But you look at the last 4 games for the Pittsburgh Steelers, 14-point loss at Philadelphia, 17-point loss at Baltimore. Christmas Day, lost by 19 to the Chiefs. Wrapped up the regular season with that loss to the Bengals. So Mike Tomlin knows this is a challenging stretch that they had and trying to turn the page as they head into the postseason. Here's the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, Mike Tomlin.
It's about this week for us. We're playing someone that we're highly familiar with. They're also highly familiar with us. It'll be a third time that these two teams have come together. We'll do it in their venue. And so there's a lot of work ahead of us in preparation for performance. I don't find comfort in the familiarity. If anything, it just provides depths to the strategic waters, if you will. And so we're proceeding with that understanding. For us, it's important that we take the lessons learned from the last month. Unfortunately, you probably learn more when there's failure. And obviously, we've experienced some of that. Some of it not jaw-dropping things or earth-shattering things, more confirmation of things that we believe in or things that we engineer victory by. We suffered the consequences of not winning the turnover to battle in recent weeks, and that's been very evident. We've also suffered the consequences of not performing to our standards in the red zone, offensively and defensively. And oftentimes your ability to win possession downs within those situations define you, that 4-point swing. During that 4-game stretch, we weren't strong enough defensively in that area, and we certainly weren't strong enough offensively in that area. Although on Saturday night, I thought we did make some hay in that regards on defense. Our ability to keep Cincinnati, Joe Burrow, and company out of the end zone was a major component of us staying in that football game and having a chance to win. As we talked about last week, Joe and company, I think Joe had thrown at least 3 touchdowns in every game over the second half of the season, and our ability to hold him and that collective to 1 touchdown in play was why we were close, why we had the ball and a chance to win at the end.
To town there. Whew, long-winded Tomlin on that one. How about this? Spread right now, 9.5. If this closes at 9.5 or higher, it would be the biggest underdog the Steelers have ever been against the Baltimore Ravens, and it's happening on a Super Wildcard Weekend. We'll break down Super Wildcard Weekend with Todd Furman, handicapper from the Bet the Board podcast, as well as CBS Sports HQ. We'll do that next. It is VSiN's Tailgate Show on VSiN.
Do you own a timeshare? Well, face the facts. You made a mistake. You made a bad purchase. A timeshare is not an investment. It's a money pit that continues forever. If you use your timeshare, that's great. But if you don't, and you want to legally get out of your contract, call my friends right now at the Timeshare Exit Hotline. They're an experienced team of lawyers who help good people like you get out of a timeshare contract that they just don't want. Don't throw away your money on maintenance fees. Use it for things you really want. We can help you end your timeshare contract and stop the money drain immediately. If you are ready to move on with your timeshare, call our team right now.
Cancel your timeshare now with a free call. 800-858-6811. 800-858-6811. 800-858-6811. That's 800-858-6811.
Something amazing is happening in data management. Even though storage needs are constantly changing, companies are only paying for what they need now. That's because CDW customized a Pure Storage Evergreen One SLA-driven storage as a service solution that delivers enterprise-grade hybrid cloud storage that is effortless, efficient, and evergreen.
Driving has a rhythm all its own. Don't wreck it with a text. Before you get behind the wheel, silence your phone. Or better yet, designate a texter. For more text-free driving tips, visit stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
This is Matt Lipsack, the voice of the Youngstown Phantoms, and your home for Phantoms hockey is Western Reserve Radio.
This is Everett Fitzhugh, the radio voice of the NHL Seattle Kraken, and you're listening to the home of the Youngstown Phantoms, Western Reserve Radio.
Number has changed as well. Vikings have now vaulted, being 2.5 point favorites here. Should the market have reacted the way they did?
I'm a little surprised it popped that far. This was the one game where at the beginning of the week, I'm like, I like the Rams. And by the end of the week, I'm like, what? Wait a second. As I look into this matchup, I actually like the Vikings. And I felt better about where the Vikings sit. And I think the market feels the same way.
VSiN by the books, 7 to 10 a.m. Eastern on VSiN, the sports betting network.
On the next Follow the Money, we will spend a lot of time recapping the Wild Card Weekend and Super Wild Card Weekend in the National Football League, and we will have fresh point spreads and totals to go over for the divisional round of the NFL.
Monday Night Football, Rams and Vikings. Can the Vikings move on? Also, what happens in the college football national title game and the numbers with Nick Bogdanovich from Circa. Follow the Money weekdays, 4 to 7 Eastern on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Watching VSiN's Tailgate Show right here on VSiN, the sports betting network, where you get your winners.
We keep it rolling, getting you ready for Super Wildcard Weekend, as well as a busy night of college basketball. That night, or evening, I should say, starts very shortly. And by evening, I mean afternoon. So we got a lot to get into. My mind is all over the place, and I love it because the board is lit up. We've got plenty of games to break down. Of course, last night, Ohio State punching their ticket to the national championship with a 28-14 win over Texas. They will play Notre Dame a week from Monday down in Atlanta. A gentleman who will break that game down, no doubt, later this week on his podcast, the Bet the Board podcast, but also has his eyes fixated on what we're going to see today, tomorrow, and on Monday. It is Todd Furman, co-owner of the Bet the Board podcast, as well as CBS Sports HQ analyst. Todd, let's jump right into it because I know you guys broke down all 6 games on your podcast in depth. So you're ready to rock and roll. Chargers, Houston. We've seen some under money hit the market for the full game, 41.5, 42. And then Chargers, looks like those threes are starting to disappear. Some juice 2.5s out there. How do you look at this afternoon in the Houston Texans typical time slot of 4:30 Eastern?
Well, Tim, I got a little nervous. I thought you were going to ask for my full breakdown of Cal Baptist against Utah Valley State after Jim decided that was one of his best bets. So I'm glad that's not on my agenda. I feel much more comfortable in my lane talking a little NFL. We can get an NHL if you'd like. But, this Chargers-Houston game has started to see under money, as you mentioned. Total opened as high as 44. We'll kind of call the consensus. But that number disappeared pretty quickly on Sunday night. Number hung around that 43 range, and you did see a group with significant influence come in under the total, even at 42.5 yesterday. But the first half angle was the way that we chose to go about it on the Bet the Board podcast. I know we gave it out at a number slightly better than what the market's offering, but you don't lose a whole lot of an edge going from 21.5 to 21 or even 20.5, knowing the permutations to try and get to that 3 touchdown threshold. So I still feel comfortable for folks that want to get involved in this game to go under 20.5. 2 teams that want to run the football. They want to try and be stout in the trenches. I think that for better or worse, Bobby Slowick is going to try and pound Joe Mixon into that Chargers defensive line. You look at this Houston Texans defense, and they've been outstanding all season long from an EPA standpoint in terms of the way they've been able to contain number 1 and number 2 wide receivers. Quentin Johnston, not quite 100%. We know that Ladd McConkey can provide some matchup nightmares, and we'll see if Derek Stingley ends up traveling with him. But I think this game is played a little bit tighter to the vest. And part of the reason that, as you mentioned, you're starting to see the underdog take some money as well from the +3s disappearing into the 2.5.
Todd Furman joining us courtesy of our progressive guest line as we're getting ready for 2 games today of Wild Card Weekend, 3 tomorrow, and then 1 on Monday with the Vikings and Rams being relocated to Glendale, Arizona. So first half under is way to look for this one for you guys. Pittsburgh, Baltimore tonight. We saw some 10 show up earlier the week. Those have disappeared. It's 9.5 across the board. 44 is the total. Of course, these teams played, Todd, in Baltimore on December 21st. It was a 7-point spread and a 34-17 win for the Ravens. You know, we talked about it all week long with Texas and Ohio State. Had the market gone too far, ultimately Ohio State got there, but certainly Texas had their chances to maybe get into the cover window. Has this number gone a little bit too far, or is this the proper adjustment for how Pittsburgh has been playing this last month of the season?
Yeah, you mentioned last night's game. I'm not sure Ohio State was the right side in that contest. At 21-14, if you're laying the 6, I'm not sure you were brimming with confidence in a goal-to-go situation. So I do feel a little bit of sympathy for Longhorn backers in that particular spot. But you mentioned the third installment of this particular rivalry, and it was only a few weeks ago on a Saturday that we saw the Ravens close right around a touchdown favorite. And that was a healthy Ravens team that had their number 1 weapon in the passing game in Zay Flowers. The Steelers went into battle without George Pickens, and that game was tightly contested midway through the third quarter before it was a costly interception that allowed that game to snowball away. Now, I came into this one thinking that I was going to try and make a case for the Steelers early in the week, +10. The more I dug into this game, the more I got discouraged by what I've seen from this Steelers team offensively. I mean, 17 points or less now in 4 straight games. You dig into some of those EPA numbers outside the top 30. Russell Wilson has kind of bottomed out as a quarterback, and the one thing that we know is you can't run against this Baltimore front. So if the Steelers are going to have success, they have to muddy up the waters a little bit, sell out to stop the run, and force some of those secondary options in the receiving room for the Ravens to beat them. The problem that I have here is that I think the Ravens are going to elect to go to a lot more 2 tight end sets, and it could set up for a big day for Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely. But with this total getting bet up a little bit earlier today into that 44 range, again, I think the under makes a world of sense here. This is a Ravens defense since about week 9 that has really trended in a different direction. Marlon Humphrey moving into the slot has paid dividends, and one of your beloved Notre Dame greats in Kyle Hamilton has really taken control of getting that defense lined up. I think if the Steelers have a pass, it's very defensive-minded, and I think the Ravens would be more than comfortable to play in a rock fight. So I like the game under 44. That, however, would be as low as I would go, knowing how key that number is as far as betting totals is concerned.
Yeah, right now you can get a 44.5. Got to pay some juice at DraftKings, minus $1.18 if you do want to go with the under in that one. All right, let's get to Sunday, a game that we haven't hit on all that much, and I'm curious to get your perspective because this has been one of the bigger line moves of the week, and that's Philadelphia now out to a 5.5 point favorite against the Green Bay Packers. We all saw the Packers lose to the Bears last week, albeit without Jordan Love in the second half. Questions about Jalen Hurts. How effective will he be coming out of concussion protocol? But what do you make of this line move? And do you agree with the move from open around 3.5 now to this no man's land of 5.5?
I do think the opener, Tim, at 3.5 was a little bit short. I mean, my number's more in line with where the market currently sits. So 4 kind of would have been my cutoff. So looking to lay the points with Philadelphia. But Green Bay's been one of the more enigmatic teams, not just the way they've been priced in the market, but how they've been bet by professionals. I mean, we can hit the rewind button to the game against the Detroit Lions where they came up just short. That was one of the biggest professional positions I'd seen of the season, from 3.5 down to 3. We saw Green Bay take real professional money against the Vikings. And while that final score said it was a 2-point game, anyone who watched that contest know that that was more scoreboard cosmetics late than anything else. This Green Bay offense has really taken on water. They want to run the football behind Josh Jacobs. And in my opinion, that's not a luxury they're going to be afforded against this Eagles defensive front. If that's the case, it puts a lot more on Jordan Love, and we're not sure how healthy that elbow would be. If the movement and the feeling in his fingers and his extremities will be there that allows him to work with accuracy. And the problem for Green Bay right now, with no Christian Watson to space the field, you look at some of those passing metrics, and it's been hit or miss in terms of who Jordan Love has leaned on, and that raises some red flags for me. So rather than getting involved, though, in side or total, I can see the first half under making some sense if you believe Jalen Hurts is banged up. And Philadelphia has been without their 2 key cogs in the receiver room for extended stretches of practice this week. But I think Green Bay's offense against Philadelphia's defense is what I'd want to focus on. And I think Philadelphia's defense wins that matchup. So I'd be looking at the Packers team total under 20.5, making them prove that they can go out there and beat one of the better defenses that you're going to see in the league with a little bit of extra time to prepare.
All right, Todd, we got about 2 minutes or so before we let you run. I know you're a busy man, so dealer's choice here. The 3 other games, we've got Denver, Buffalo, Washington, Tampa, and then the Monday nighter, Minnesota and LA. Anything of those 3 games from a wagering standpoint interest you?
Anxiously awaiting to see if I can get an opportunity for a flat 3 with the Rams, even in the neutral venue there. I think it's a team that's well coached. Sean McVay clearly comfortable playing the Vikings again. Probably why he elected to sit all of his starters in the regular season finale against Seattle, but no reason to get involved yet. We'll see if a field goal pops. And when I look at the Denver-Buffalo game, I actually think Denver can be a little bit live in this spot. I expect that number to trend down in Denver's favor. We've seen some of the 9s disappear, but ironically enough in this game, Tim, the dog getting bet and the over. It's a really unique situation with a reverse correlation where normally a lower scoring game would benefit the dog. But I think this Buffalo defense has plenty of questions to answer. Let's see if Bo Nix is up for the task. I agree with the over money, but it's kind of out of range. But I do think the dog at 8.5 or better is probably worth a small value bet. Famous last words, though, as Josh Allen goes out there and feasts on man-to-man defense.
Yeah, and we heard from Mike Sanford, maybe a little homerism, but he does like Denver in that spot to be rather competitive as well. Todd, always appreciate it, my friend, and we will talk soon.
You got it, my friend. Enjoy the games today. I know college hoops heaven for you, and plenty of games to kind of wet your beak across the board starting, like you said, in about a half hour.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And as Todd lets me know, I would imagine as he scours the board, I always get a text every once in a while from Todd, be like, oh, this is your type of play. I imagine he will point out the Texas Tech spot today being a home favorite against number 3 Iowa State. Hey, folks, as we get ready for the playoffs, college basketball, national championship a week from Monday, tailgating on the mind. I was at some tailgates on Thursday night, and there's no better way to prepare you for your tailgates than Sewell's Barbecue. Born from a backyard cookout and a mason jar of unforgettable flavor, Sewell's has become a Southern favorite, delighting taste buds from Georgia to the Carolinas, from smoky ribs and mouth-watering wings to the perfect backyard burger. Sewell's turns every bite into a flavor-packed experience. Order now, SewellsBarbecueSauce.com. That's SEWELLS How about this? And we're up with the technology here. Scan that QR code. Flavor this good is just a click away. All right, the big one tonight. We've got the Baltimore Ravens, the Pittsburgh Steelers, round number 3. Will the Ravens take it?
This is Mario Andretti. You know me as a race car driver, but I'm also a Meals on Wheels volunteer. I've raced against the sport's biggest personalities, but I've never met more vibrant, amazing people than the seniors served by Meals on Wheels. You can make a difference by dropping off a hot meal and saying a quick hello. So, America, let's do lunch. Volunteer your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org.
This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
People been saying to your friend, get a different face, and posting on their feed, they're super ugly. The things they say to them online are cruel and they're not true. So tell your friend, I'll stand up for you. Don't worry, I know what to do.
Know someone being bullied online? You can be a witness and make a difference by letting the world know it isn't cool and by letting your friend know you care. Learn more at eyewitnessbullying.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Hope you enjoyed your meal. And I just want to say, he's lucky to have a brother like you.
Lucky? Caring for my brother is far from easy. But he's a part of me, like my arms and legs, so I'll be his. No time for tired. Nothing can disable this love. He needs me, but I'm the lucky one, even though I need help now and then.
If you're caring for a loved one, visit aarp.org/caregiving for care guides and community support for your strength. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
I spend a lot of time in the backyard, and I'm the center of attention at summer barbecues. In '96, I made some of the tastiest s'mores. And in '09, it was me, your backyard fire pit, that accidentally started a wildfire when a summer breeze carried one of my embers into some dry brush.
Spark a change, not a wildfire. Visit SmokeyBear.com. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
My name is Lola Silvestri, and I'm going to be 95 this year. I was very independent. I fell, and I had to have Meals on Wheels. America, let's do lunch.
1 in 6 seniors faces the threat of hunger, and millions more live in isolation. Drop off a hot meal and say a quick hello. Volunteer for Meals on Wheels by donating your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org. This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
Hey everyone, let's all stop what we're doing and take a moment. You see, every moment can be kind of special. But they can be loud moments, goofy moments, dorky moments, it doesn't matter. Because every time dads like us take a moment like that to spend with our kids, well, it's pretty momentous. So let's take a moment to make a moment. Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Western Reserve Radio at westernreserveradio.com on the Live 365 network and the Live 365 app.
It up with the world's largest sports book, Circa Sports. Get loose and get loud with all sports, all seasons at Stadium Swim. Take in the $1 million views at our rooftop lounge, Legacy Club. Go big and go all night with our luxurious rooms and suites. Book the time of your life today at circalasvegas.com.
You spoke, we listened. Introducing the all-new VEASAN Watch app. Now, you can watch and listen to VEASAN expert analysis live wherever you are. Missed a show? No problem. Catch replays of VEASAN's full lineup at any time. View highlights sorted by sport. Or use the search feature to find specific teams and topics you're looking for. And the best part? It's free for a limited time. Download the VEASAN Watch app today. Available now on the App Store and Google Play. And join us on the Sports Betting Network.
You're watching VSiN's Tailgate Show right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, where you get your winners.
We're at the midway point of the Tailgate Show, meaning we got 90 more minutes of action-packed content for you. Super wildcard weekend, 2 games today, 3 games tomorrow, and the Monday Nighter now in Glendale, Arizona, with the Rams taking on the Minnesota Vikings. Right now, 3 has shown up. But as we just heard from Todd Furman, we wait and see if we get the flat 3. Right now, it's a juice 3 there at DraftKings if you do like the dog, like I do with the Rams. And as always, with the relocation of that game, do check your house rules. Some houses say action as long as it's X amount of miles away. So just check your accounts. Did you get refunded? If you made an early bet on those games, always worth keeping an eye on that. We'll run through the college basketball slate, which does get going top of the hour, and we'll run through as many games as possible coming up actually in about 15 minutes. But let's keep the previews rolling along and welcome in a good friend of mine from Baltimore. It is Glenn Clark. You could follow him at Glenn Clark Radio, 2 N's Radio on Twitter. Hear him on 105.7 The Fan as well. So, let's just look at this rivalry from the standpoint of this, Glenn, as he joins us as always on our progressive guest line. Glenn, this rivalry, what does it mean to the fans in Baltimore? I've always said this is the best rivalry in the NFL, but for this game to come to fruition in the playoffs, how much are the Ravens fans chomping at the bit even more knowing it's Pittsburgh tonight at M&T Bank Stadium?
It's a big deal, Tim. You know what the crazy part is? There's never been a Ravens-Steelers playoff game in Baltimore in the history of this rivalry. This is the first time that these teams have met in the playoffs in Baltimore. And this rivalry has been so weird. There's been a lot made about the fact that the Steelers had won 8 of 9 at one point. But since Lamar Jackson's arrival, he's barely played against the Steelers. The game they played 4 weeks ago was the first game that Lamar Jackson had ever started against the Steelers in front of fans in Baltimore. The only time he had started against the Steelers in Baltimore before was in 2020 during the COVID years. So it's been a very strange sort of recent history of this rivalry. I think this is an incredible opportunity to write a new chapter tonight. It's been 10 years since these teams have met at all in the postseason.
When you look at Lamar Jackson, we'll dive into the MVP discussion a little bit later on in our conversation here. But, so many people are going to think back to the Chiefs game and the abandonment of the run and some of the shortcomings of Lamar and the Ravens in the postseason. I guess, what do you make of that? What do you expect from this offense today, knowing that there's no Zay Flowers tonight for the Ravens?
Yeah, it actually impacts a couple of the prop bets that I kind of like for today's game. I will tell you a couple of things, Tim. One, I think it's fair to point out Lamar Jackson, for all of his greatness, he is not a great postseason quarterback at this point in his career. I also think it's worth pointing out that he's still only 28 years old. He came into the league at such an incredibly young age that we're judging him at what he was doing at 21, 22. Not to say that doesn't matter, but that's, these guys are barely even thinking about leaving college at this point at those ages. So I do think a lot of the narrative is related to particularly young ages. This is critical. I mean, this is the point of his career where there's no defending it any longer. Like, it has to turn around. It has to change. Make no mistake, what happened last year in the playoffs is the reason why Derrick Henry is here. I was among the people that kind of said, is running back really the place to be spending your money? Is that really what you should be doing as an NFL team in 2024? And I talked to a few folks within the upper leadership of the Baltimore Ravens, and they said Derrick Henry is here for January. He's here for the playoffs. And truth be told, the Ravens did not intend to use him as much as they did. There was a famous clip that John Harbaugh said, look, we don't want Derrick Henry touching the ball 30 times a game during the preseason. And then he had some big touch games. It was like, hey, what was that all about? And the Ravens acknowledged publicly they changed the plan because they started 0-2 on the season. They were not intending to use Derrick Henry the way that they did until they got off to an 0-2 start, and they had to get things jump-started. So Derrick Henry is here for this reason. If they abandon the run with Derrick Henry, then it's dereliction of duty, and maybe, everybody's got to go at that point. It just can't happen. That's the reason why he's here.
Ravens 9.5-point favorites. We're talking to Glenn Clark at Glenn Clark Radio. You can catch him at Glenn Clark Radio. He'll point you in the right direction. He does some post-game commentary as well as you can hear him on 105.7 The Fan in Baltimore. All right, let's get into the prop that you alluded to. Mark Andrews. What do we expect from Mr. Reliable, number 89 there, Mark Andrews, right now at DraftKings plus 155, anytime touchdown. How involved is Mark Andrews tonight for the Ravens offense?
Yeah, it's Mark Andrews is a critical part. And it really kind of doesn't matter to me, even that Zay Flowers isn't playing. Like, Mark Andrews, the ball's going his way. And it was funny because 4 weeks into the season, there was some real concern that Mark Andrews wasn't going to be Mark Andrews anymore. And then since that stretch, he's caught touchdowns in 10 of his last 12 games. He finished the regular season with 11 after not having any in his first 5 games. Mark Andrews is Mark Andrews again. He is absolutely one of the best tight ends in football. and that long-standing relationship between he and Lamar Jackson, the trust that Lamar has. A couple of the touchdowns he's caught this year, he was not open. I mean, it was just Lamar Jackson saying, I know if I put this ball on Mark Andrews' area, he's going to catch the ball. So, yeah, that's one. I had a couple others that I like, but that one's one. I can't imagine not betting a Mark Andrews anytime touchdown. It just feels like you don't like money if you're not betting a Mark Andrews anytime touchdown. I still don't even know how you're getting any juice at all on this. Like, all he does is catch touchdowns. 11 since week 5. They didn't have one in the first 5 weeks of the season. He's had 11 since then, and you're still getting any juice on a Mark Andrews anytime touchdown, which is bonkers to me.
Well, last night, I love that. I don't know if you don't like money. How are you not betting this? Mark Andrews, plus 155 right now at DraftKings, anytime touchdown. Make sure you look around, maybe get a little extra juice out there. Let's go to a unique kind of prop, a little off the radar, and that's the beauty of the playoffs and all of this. And it's funny, people not surprise me to bring things back to college football. But last night we saw all of the running backs be involved in the passing game, whether it was Quinshon Judkins, Jaden Blue. They all went over. Wisner went over as well. So let's go to Derrick Henry. 4.5 receiving yards right now is the number at FanDuel. Does Derrick Henry, the battering ram that he is, does he get involved in the pass game today?
Yeah, it makes sense that number is low. No one thinks of Derrick Henry as a pass-catching back, but the truth is he's caught at least 2 passes in 4 of his last 5 games. Suddenly down the stretch, a lot of it is in those Lamar kind of backyard, moving around, trying to find somewhere to go with the ball, where in the past he used to just take off and run. He has absolutely tried to let those things play out longer to throw the ball. And if Derrick Henry's the guy that's waiting for it, he's willing to go to Derrick Henry. But the other thing, too, is I expect with Zay Flowers out today that the Steelers are going to stuff the box early on. I think they are going to try everything in their power to take away Derrick Henry. And the Ravens want to get Derrick Henry going. Remember, he had just 8 first-half rushing yards a week ago against the Browns before ending up dominant with 130 in the second half. They want to get the ball in his hands. They have shown that they are willing to give him the ball. Unlike most of his career, he's been catching passes. He has 10 catches over the last 5 weeks. I think 4.5 is a number that I'd have to jump over.
All right. Glenn Clark joining us here, courtesy of our progressive guest line. Baltimore, a 9.5-point favorite. Total mostly 44. But if you do like the under, there's a juice 44.5 out there at DraftKings. Just from a side or total standpoint, 9.5, as I mentioned. It did touch 10. That seemed to be the resistance point earlier this week, where you saw some Pittsburgh money come in. Glenn, how do you see this game playing out? Anything from a side or total standpoint that you'd look at here?
Yeah, it feels crazy in a Ravens-Steelers game because we're just so used to like every Ravens-Steelers game being 13-10, 16-13. It always feels crazy. But, if you're a believer in DVOA, if you're a believer in EPA, this number is not only right, it's probably still low. The Ravens are that much better than the Pittsburgh Steelers, particularly since their defense turned around. I still think that everybody here, it's difficult to get Ravens fans to get on board with that. But I think if you were truly analyzing these teams, this is not an anomaly. The Ravens are significantly better than the Pittsburgh Steelers. And if there's not conspiracy on their part, like if they don't put the ball on the ground a few times, they should win this game by multiple scores. They should win this game by double digits. The Steelers have not a lot going for them at the moment. And Russell Wilson's been brutal. The Ravens are historically one of the great offenses in modern NFL history. There's no reason, I think, if you were neutral to not like the Ravens side. Here in Baltimore, there's a lot of, nope, not doing that. No way, because we've seen way too many Ravens-Steelers games that have all been the 16, 13, 17. That's just the way that you could almost plan on it at that point. So I also think they'll try to get Rashad Bateman involved early. I do. With Zay Flowers out, I think they'll try to get Rashad Bateman involved early. So I'd be looking at some Rashad Bateman numbers.
Glenn, always appreciate it, man. Enjoy the game. And folks, tune into Glenn's content following the Ravens-Steelers game tonight at Glenn Clark Radio, glennclarkradio.com. Glenn, appreciate it, brother.
Tim, you're the best, brother. Good luck to your Irish.
Oh, thank you very much. There he is, Glenn Clark, courtesy of our progressive guest line. Hey, maybe the Baltimore Ravens will be playing in New Orleans in a couple of weeks in Big Game 59. And guess what? We've got a deal to match. Save $59 of a VSiN Pro annual subscription when you sign up using the promo code TAILGATE. You can become a VSiN Pro annual subscriber. Bet smarter all year long with our full access to everything we have to offer, our best bets, the betting splits, everything you could want. $59 off if you use the promo code TAILGATE, VSIN.com/subscribe, promo code.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. Look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Hamilton the Pug, Instagram star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
You make sure his toys don't have any sharp edges. You taught her what to do when the smoke alarm goes off. You do so much to keep your child safe. But are you using the right car seat for your child? Car crashes are a leading killer of children ages 1 to 13. Protect your child's future at every stage of life. For information on the right seat for your child, visit safercar.gov/the-right-seat.
A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council. So you see, son, good manners are important. Should I go through it again?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Exactly. Always say please, thank you, you're welcome, and excuse me. Sit up straight, hold doors open, don't speak with your mouth full, keep your elbows off the table. Share your things, play nice, and generally treat others the way you'd like to be treated. Got it?
Got it.
And stop picking your nose.
Most parenting is hard to do in just 2 minutes. But 2 minutes twice a day, making sure they brush their teeth is easier, and it could help save them from a lifetime of tooth pain. Visit tunein2x.org to find out more. A message from the Partnership for Healthy Mouths, Healthy Lives, and the Ad Council.
I'm a retired school psychologist, and helping people was my thing. After my stroke, when Meals on Wheels started, I was on the other end of the stick, so to speak. My name is Julius Gaines, creative writer, poet, photographer.
1 in 6 seniors faces the threat of hunger, and millions more live in isolation. Drop off a hot meal and say a quick hello. Volunteer for Meals on Wheels by donating your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org. This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
It may be hard to believe, but people just like you are already saving money. FeedThePig.org makes it easy. Their simple savings plan teaches you how to start saving without going overboard, so you don't need to start foraging wild berries.
I was skeptical, but these are actually pretty good.
You don't need to sell your soul to the devil.
$15 is the best I can do.
You just need FeedThePig.org. Don't get left behind. Get tips and tools at FeedThePig.org. Brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
Welcome to Calvin's Barbershop.
You all got to see this.
I don't even want to know what you're looking at on that phone.
Well, you should. I was learning about the dangers of high blood pressure and that we need to get ours checked regularly. High blood pressure can increase the risk of heart attack or stroke, but this text program can help keep it at a healthy range. Just text Barbershop to 97779 to sign up.
I'll get right on it as soon as I'm done with this baby panda video.
Text Barbershop to 97779. A message from the American Heart Association and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Western Reserve Radio at westernreserveradio.com on the Live 365 network and the Live 365 app.
On Prop Points, only on VSiN.
And shout out to Elijah Moore as well. Oftentimes he's Elijah less. Keep in mind, Sean Payton is evil for fantasy football.
John and his guests will help you find the connection between the two and give you his expert advice on how to capitalize when a number is too good to pass up. Prop Points, every weekday at 2 p.m. Eastern on VSiN, the sports betting network.
That spice is 10 out of 10. Would recommend. Hi, my name is Khadijah, and a little thing I love about the Chick-fil-A Grilled Spicy Deluxe Sandwich is that spicy kick of the chicken. It's just the right amount of heat, and it gets me excited. And then, pro tip, add that cilantro lime sauce. It cools it down. If the sandwich is at 100, the cilantro lime takes it to 200. It makes me want to, tell all my friends and family.
Order a Chick-fil-A Grilled Spicy Deluxe Sandwich and a Diet Dr. Pepper on the Chick-fil-A app for a limited time. Real guests paid for their testimonial.
You're watching VSiN's Tailgate Show right here on VSiN, the sports betting network, where you get your winners.
We keep it rolling here. It is the VSiN Tailgate Show each and every Saturday. You can catch us from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Less than a week from now, this show and all of our content will be on Sirius XM at channel 158 starting January 17th. So we, of course, are fired up about our return to Sirius XM. In the final hour of the program, we will go behind the counter. Chuck Esposito will give us the latest from what he's been seeing, who they will need, and also got to ask how last night went. My guess would be probably not too well, as I imagine the books were hoping that Texas would pull off the outright upset, but we'll get the answer for you coming up in about 45 minutes. And 30 minutes from now, my guy, Matt Humans, will break down his college basketball card as well as his NFL card. Quick update just from the odds perspective. Houston and LA, that is the first game of Super Wildcard Weekend. The Texans and Chargers total coming back up just a little bit to 42. Now, remember, this thing opened 44, has sunk down to 41.5, right now 42. A play from Todd Furman. He did like under in the first half. And then Pittsburgh and Baltimore, 44 right now from a total standpoint. DraftKings does sit 44.5 juice to the under at minus 118, and the spread 9.5 across the board for Baltimore and Pittsburgh. We'll get more thoughts on Super Wildcard Weekend coming up at the top of the hour. But as we've talked about throughout the show, and we will talk a lot of college hoops on this show. I can promise you that. On Saturdays, that's when college hoops shines, just like college football. We had Jim Root on giving us his insight and some of his favorite plays, including Cal Baptist catching the points at Utah Valley. It's the type of insight you're going to get. Question for all of you before we dive into the games for today. Do you know who the best team against the spread in college basketball is this year? Yep, you guessed it. The St. Bonaventure Bonnies. All you had to do was go out and get Adrian Wojnarowski to be your GM, and things are going to turn around. They are 13-2 ATS. You know, I wonder that's why that Porsche was sitting there in the Circa parking lot. It must be Joe Serralo just betting on his alma mater nonstop. So quite the impressive run for the Bonnies. They're 13-2 ATS. Do they keep it rolling today? As right now the Bonnies laying 12 against LaSalle. That game coming up at the top of the hour. Alluded to it earlier in the show. There are 8 top 12 teams on the road today. We always love some road dogs in college football, and this is going to be a spot where you don't see too many road dogs in that top 12, except for number 3, Iowa State. So running through those 8 games real quickly, we'll give you the number here. Number 1, Tennessee. How do they respond after losing by 30 earlier this week in a just dreadful shooting performance, or delightful, depending on what side you were on? I happen to be on Florida, so it was lovely to see them not be able to hit any shots whatsoever. I do wonder, and we talked to Jim Root about this, is this a bounce back spot for Tennessee? I think Matt Humans has got some thoughts on it. I think ultimately at 6 o'clock Eastern tonight, I could see myself laying the 4, which is out there at Circa and a couple other shops, 4.5s out there at DraftKings and others. I think Tennessee bounces back here against Texas in this spot. Texas, by the way, a tough one earlier this week as they lost to Auburn. Speaking of War Damn Eagle, boy, they should be the number 1 team in the country come the AP poll when it comes out on Monday or Sunday night. 1 o'clock Eastern, they're in Columbia, South Carolina. They're laying 17 against the Gamecocks, and it was not pretty earlier this week. It felt like it was maybe an advantageous spot to potentially look at backing the Gamecocks earlier this week, but instead, South Carolina went out and played Alabama, and when Alabama's hot, they are tough to beat. Mark Sears, I believe, hit 4 threes in the first half earlier this week against that South Carolina team as they went out and won by 20. Alabama did in at home against South Carolina. So Columbia, South Carolina, will it be buzzing tonight? Auburn, a 17-point favorite. The stinkiest line of the day would have to be this one. How about number 3 Iowa State on the road at Lubbock, guns up, and the Texas Tech Red Raiders are the favorite in this game. Grant McCaslin's squad is looking for not an upset because they are the favorite, a win outright here over Iowa State. This is a best bet of mine. I laid the minus 145 on the money line earlier today. Minus 150 still playable there. Iowa State is a legitimate Final Four contending team. There's no denying that. On a 10-game winning streak, second best in the country. Only loss this year came in the first round of the Maui Invitational against Auburn in a damn good basketball game on a Monday night out there at the Lahaina Civic Center, 83-81. So I think this is a good spot. Texas Tech guns up. Now a 3-point favorite. Makes you scratch your chin a little bit and say, So that is number 3. Iowa State on the road. No, Duke is not on the road. They're 4th in the country. Cooper Flag squad, number 2 in Ken Palm. Tremendous defensive squad. And when you look at the ACC this year, boy, we make our jokes about the football this recent season there for the ACC. ACC hoops outside of Duke is not very pretty, especially with the struggles that North Carolina has been having. They host Notre Dame today, and they are an enormous favorite at home, are the Blue Devils. Now a 19-point favorite against the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Notre Dame, how about the way that they've played? They get their hearts ripped out last Saturday against North Carolina, give up a 4-point play in the final 10 seconds of the game. Then they blow a 5-point lead in the final 2 minutes on the road at NC State. They're playing Duke today. Best of luck, Notre Dame, in that spot. How about a big-time game, the game of the day? Tonight, Alabama goes on the road to College Station. This game is going to be fantastic. Alabama, when they are hot from beyond the arc, and I think Jeff Goodman alluded to this when they were playing in the first half against South Carolina earlier this week. They are tough to beat, maybe the best team in the country when they can be hitting from long range. This team wants to get up and go. Number 3 in the country in adjusted tempo. They're averaging almost 75 possessions per game. Earlier this week, they beat Oklahoma, or last Saturday, I should say, they beat undefeated Oklahoma 107-79. They responded by beating South Carolina 88-68. Today, you've got Alabama right now, a road favorite against Texas A&M. And Jim Root did have some thoughts on this. Not an official best bet. He said he did like the road chalk a little bit in this spot. Could be a good in-game trading one. When you look at a total like that of 161, and we're looking at a spread of 2.5, we're going to have swings in these games. And